Chapter 141. Douluo, the Impassive One. 3 battered figures hung from the sturdy branches of the tree, their bodies bruised and bloodied. Douluo stood below them, whip in hand, his face as cold and unfeeling as the steel he wielded. He surveyed his captives with icy detachment, until a sudden roar shattered the tense silence. "What's the matter with you 3? Douluo demanded, startled by Flanders's furious shout. He glanced down at his whip, wondering if perhaps he'd been too stingy with his lashes. "Douluo," Flanders snarled, glaring up through swollen eyes, "if you've got the nerve, strike me, but leave my Erlongmei out of it." "Boss Fu," cried the second captive, Erlong, his voice wavering yet determined. "I'll protect Xiaogong. Come on, hit me if you dare. I can take it." A third figure, their master, choked back sobs as blood still trickled from the corners of his eyes. "Erlong, Flanders," he gasped, gratitude and pain warring in his gaze. Tears threatened to spill, though the fierce loyalty of his companions held them back. Douluo's lips curled into a sneer. The racket was intolerable. In his mind, he cursed himself for not ordering Nash to beat them senseless. At least then it would have been quiet. He raised the whip, ready to lash out again, when a silent presence caught his eye. High in the branches, Tang San remained motionless and unblinking. Unlike the others, he offered no cries of protest, only a steady, unreadable calm that made Douluo pause. The whip hovered in midair as he considered the quiet figure above. An uncharacteristic flicker of curiosity passed through Douluo's eyes. Why was Tang San, and only Tang San, so utterly still? The whip trembled in his hand, and for the first time that day, Douluo hesitated. Douluo's lips curved into a cold smile. He'd uncovered Tang San's little secret. He wasn't truly unconscious, and wasted no time in confronting him. Striding up to Tang San's prostrate form, he spoke in a low, chilling voice. "Tang San, I know you've been awake for quite a while. Since your 3 teachers are so unified, I'll offer you a choice." He paused, savoring the moment. "If you submit to my blows, I'll release the 3 of them. Or, if you let me beat your teachers, I'll let you go. The decision is yours." A dark laugh escaped Douluo's lips, echoing through the chamber. Tang San felt the ruse slip away. He could no longer pretend. He opened his eyes and met Douluo's gaze without flinching. He understood perfectly what Douluo was trying to do, turn allies into enemies and break their bond. If Tang San agreed to sacrifice his teachers, he'd be next in line for beatings, and likely worse. Yet among the 3 captives of the Golden Iron Triangle, his master held the greatest place in his heart. The other 2 instructors were dear to him, but not like his master, who had guided him since childhood. Now, with Douluo's ultimatum hanging in the air, Tang San had to make an impossible choice: his own safety or theirs. Tang San faced an impossible choice. Of his 3 masters, each of whom had taught him and shared a deep bond with both him and one another, how could he single out just one? If he named one, he would wound the other 2. If he refused to choose, rumors would spread that he was a coward, clinging to life instead of honor. For someone of Tang San's reputation for loyalty and integrity, such slander was unbearable. Douluo watched him in silence until Tang San still stood mute. Then he let out a low, mocking laugh, flicked back his arm, and cracked the long whip across Tang San's backside with full force. "Don't want to choose, do you? Fine. I'll beat you until you do." A white-hot bolt of pain tore through Tang San as the whip bit into him. He let out a high-pitched scream, but before the sound even faded, Douluo lashed him again and again and again. Each strike drove a fresh scream from Tang San's throat. This was no warning, it was torture. Douluo's cruel, unrelenting strikes left no doubt. Here was a man to be feared, not placated. Douluo didn't care about lasting damage, only about making the whip sting. He lashed Tang San's back without mercy, 10 brutal minutes in all, until the youth's skin was torn and blood ran in rivulets down his sides. At last, Douluo let the whip fall and rubbed his sore wrist, a strange smile playing on his lips. "How about it?" he asked. "Have you made your choice? Say the right words, and the beatings stop." Tang San gasped for air, his body shaking with pain. Without even a scrap of cloth to cushion the blows, every breath against the ragged wounds felt like fire. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he struggled to speak. I. Before he could finish, Flanders's calm voice cut through the tension. "Douluo, listen well. Xiao San's father is you. If you value your life, or your reputation, you'll leave him alone, cross him, and you'll die a most ignoble death." Douluo paused, his curiosity clearly piqued. He leaned forward, amusement gleaming in his eyes. "Oh, you still dare to threaten me? Then tell me, what secret power or hidden pedigree does this boy possess that makes me tremble at the thought of offending him?" "Thanks to my father, even if the Pope of Wuhan Palace himself shows up, I've got nothing to fear," Cheng Xiao said, folding his arms. Flanders let out a mocking snort. "Your surname's Tang? I hope you realize how many Tangs there are on this continent. It's a name you can't just throw around." Douluo's brow furrowed. "Tang? Tang-san?" He exchanged a glance with Flanders. "You're claiming to be his son? Prove it." Flanders laughed coldly, pointing at the small sprig of grass Cheng Xiao held. "Oh, what next? Your martial spirit's a mutated blue-silver grass? Then I suppose that legendary Tang-san must have a head as green as this worthless weed." A dark smile crept across Douluo's face. Since witnessing the might of the great dragon Nash and settling his grudge with Douluo of Wuhan Palace, he'd grown daring. "Mr. Tang, you're stronger than most, that I'll admit. But don't think I'm backing down. I'll tip off Wuhan Palace about you, and we'll see who comes out on top. And if anything ever happens to your junior, Douluo, well, there's nothing I wouldn't do. Remember me, I'm Douluo, the titled Douluo known as Poison." Douluo loomed over the fallen boy, arms crossed, expression unreadable as Tang-san struggled to draw another poisoned breath. Flanders hovered nervously at his side, forcing himself to speak. "You're right. Up close, in pure martial skill, Tang-san can't match you," Flanders admitted, voice quavering. "But poison is an equalizer. Do you really think the famed Tang family can shrug off this toxin indefinitely?" Douluo's face remained calm, and Flanders, sensing his one advantage slipping away, pressed on desperately. What if he isn't a one-spirit fighter at all? What if he has twin martial spirits? If we die here in the Sunset Forest, mark my words, my men will go straight to Tang-san's father. Who do you think he'll blame for our disappearance?" At the mere mention of Tang-san's father, Douluo's steely composure wavered. He'd heard legends of dual-spirit warriors, beings said to possess strength beyond imagination. If this bloodied boy truly had two spirits, eliminating him could mean inviting a far deadlier foe, and yet offering mercy might cost Douluo his hard-won pride. Out of the corner of his eye, Tang-san forced himself to sit up, blood trickling down his chin. Every heartbeat throbbed with poison, but his mind raced with newfound certainty. His father's reputation ran deeper than he'd ever suspected. A low, amused laugh broke from him, and he met Flanders' panicked gaze. "Thank you for the warning, Flanders," he said, voice steady despite the ache in his veins. "That was helpful." Douluo let out a twisted laugh, his eyes blazing with savage light. "We're enemies now," he snarled. "I won't let you walk away. I'll kill you, destroy your bodies, and then slip away from this place. Once I'm gone, no one will ever find me." Chapter 142, For the Sake of Our Old Friendship. "Jeej, if you have any complaints, blame your own poor judgment," Douluo said, with a twisted laugh. "You knew there were tigers in these mountains, yet you still insisted on wandering into their den. Now you dare cry foul? Don't fault me for being ruthless." He lifted his palm, and a sickly green glow coalesced into the writhing forms of venomous snakes. In an instant, dozens of dark green serpents slithered over the golden iron triangle's bodies, their scales glinting with lethal intent. The three warriors, masters of formidable skill, turned deathly pale. They knew that one strike from these venomous coils would send them flying through the sky, lifeless. Before a single fangs could strike, the eldest of the trio steadied himself, voice trembling but eyes fixed on Douluo. "Wait," he called out, forcing down his mounting terror. "Douluo, Tang-san is my disciple. What have I done to deserve this?" His plea hung in the tense air as the snakes inched closer, converging on his exposed neck. Silence reigned, broken only by their rattling hisses, and all three masters dared not breathe. "Let me bear the blame. My teachers will vouch for me. Please, just free my friends. I'll give my life for theirs." Xiaogang's voice trembled as he stepped forward. Behind him, Liu Erlong's face flushed red with fury. "Xiaogang, don't talk nonsense. We're the Golden Iron Triangle. We live together. We die together." Douluo leaned against the wall, arms folded, his cold smile growing wider. "Free them? Why should I value your worthless life over three others? I'll kill you first. No one will come looking for you afterward. I have one rule: eliminate the root of the problem. With a flick of his wrist, the venomous snake slithered from Douluo's hand and coiled around the four friends' necks. Its mouth opened in a crimson arc, the green fangs glinting with lethal intent. Listen to your death rattle, Douluo taunted. One bite from this beauty, and you'll melt into nothing but pus. The snake reared its head, fangs poised to strike. In that instant, Douluo's triumphant grin faltered, his face drained of color, and he staggered backward as if struck. A sudden, thunderous roar rolled out from the heart of the Icefire Springs. The moment the dragon's cry reached him, Douluo felt his soul power surge and twist wildly. The venomous snakes he had summoned flickered into faint green motes and scattered in the echo of the roar. He barely had time to steady his tumultuous energy before a vast shadow shot skyward from the forest, blotting out the moonlit clearing. Perched atop that immense shape was a solitary figure clad in black. Old Poison, the newcomer called, his voice calm yet carrying clearly through the valley. Nash tells me you apprehended those soul masters who trespassed into the Icefire Springs to steal our herbs. How have you dealt with them? At the sound of that title, the members of the Golden Iron Triangle shifted uneasily. But as the dark figure descended with effortless grace and landed before them, even their master's stern expression softened into a small, relieved smile. Cheng Xiao, Tang San, Flanders, you've come for us. At the sight of their rescuer, the master couldn't contain his relief, his voice cracking with excitement. But the instant he called out Cheng Xiao's name, Tang San's brow furrowed in confusion. Across the clearing, Douluo's lips curled into a faint sneer. His gaze slid coldly from Cheng Xiao to the trembling master at his side. You know Cheng Xiao? He asked, his tone sharp as edged steel. The master swallowed hard, realizing he'd made a risky move. Yes, Senior Douluo, you may not be aware, but Cheng Xiao and Tang San both studied at Notting Academy. They were inseparable back then. I was their teacher. He stepped forward, voice urgent. Surely you'll spare us for the sake of our old classmates? He forced the words out, desperation tingling in every syllable. He'd overheard Cheng Xiao refer to Douluo as an old poisoner, and guessed there had to be some history between them. If invoking that past could save their lives, he'd seize on it without hesitation. Douluo's eyes narrowed as he listened to the old man's claim, but he refused to accept it at face value. You say you taught Cheng Xiao, that you were his master. Then answer me this. What did you teach him? The old man's face flushed with panic. Senior Douluo, if you doubt my words, then ask Cheng Xiao yourself. When he earned his first soul ring, it was I who guided him there. You could say I was the one who showed him the path to becoming a soul master. Douluo frowned and shifted his gaze to Cheng Xiao, who had just landed on the ground and was dusting off his robes. A faint, mocking smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. Is that so, boy? Did this man really come from your former sect? Cheng Xiao paused mid-motion, his expression guarded. He met Douluo's piercing stare for a long moment before answering. If he wasn't there, Cheng Xiao said evenly, then who else would have helped me claim my first soul ring? Douluo considered Cheng Xiao's words. The wind stirred the fallen petals around them, and for a heartbeat, silence stretched between master and disciple. Then Douluo let out a low chuckle. Very well, we'll settle this soon enough. He turned back to the old man, eyes still cold. Get ready, you'll prove your story on the field of honor. The old man swallowed hard, but nodded, his earlier confidence finally giving way to unease. Cheng Xiao stood beside Douluo, tension coiling in the air as the two prepared to face the coming challenge and uncover the truth behind the mysterious mentor's claim. Cheng Xiao strolled forward with an easy confidence, glancing at the hanged figure swaying from the ancient oak. Teacher, he called out with a mocking tilt to his voice, I'm still supposed to be your guide on the path to becoming a soul master. Let's see how you handle this. Beside him, Douluo leaned casually against a gnarled root, arms folded. He laughed, then raised a hand to silence Cheng Xiao's challenge. Old Poison may hold the title of professor at the Spirit Academy, he said, voice low, but that doesn't make him much of a teacher. Cheng Xiao's eyes narrowed as he studied the limp body before them. The man, once a revered scholar of spirit theory, was stripped bare, his dignity gone. A flicker of something like guilt crossed Cheng Xiao's face, but he quickly quashed it. "He's been broken," he murmured. "How did it come to this?" Douluo pushed himself off the root and strolled closer, fingering the professor's discarded robes. "Believe me, I was just as shocked. But honestly, do you think this wreck of a man is the one who's going to lead you to your first spirit ring?" He let the words hang in the still air, then added with a grin, "A 29th phase Great Soul Master wouldn't bother escorting a novice on such a trivial hunt, would he?" The insult stung. Above them, Old Poison's eyes fluttered open, glinting with a mixture of pain and wounded pride. He had never sought battlefield glory. His strength lay in theory and research. Yet here he was, humiliated and helpless, a punishment meted out for a folly of the heart. Nothing cut deeper than the fracture of a man's honor. He opened his mouth to plead or to curse, but the world spun. Douluo and Cheng Xiao loomed like judges, their fates already sealed. He bit back the cry that threatened to escape. Douluo clapped his hands once, sharp and final. "Enough," he said. "Let's move on." Without another glance at the professor, he and Cheng Xiao turned and vanished into the shadows of the forest, leaving Old Poison to dangle in silence, his mind a whirl of regret, pain, and the chilling certainty that in their eyes he was already dead. If he hesitated now, he'd be courting death. Drawing a steady breath, Tang San squared his shoulders and called out across the courtyard. "Cheng Xiao, if you've got the courage, step up and face me. This man," he waved a dismissive hand at Douluo, "accuses me of stealing his medicinal materials. But the eyes of ice and fire are one of the greatest treasures in all creation, meant only for the virtuous. Douluo is a murderer and a scoundrel unworthy of such power, and how can you stand by and let him slander my teacher like this? Have you forgotten who helped you claim your first spirit ring?" Every word rang clear in the gathering dusk. Tang San's knuckles whitened on the hilt of his blade as he defended both his teacher's name and his own honor. For a heartbeat, there was only silence. Then Cheng Xiao's eyes widened so far you could almost see the gears turning in his head. Unbelievable," he murmured, unable to find another word. Beside him, Douluo's sneer faltered. He had always prided himself on a thick skin, but he'd never met anyone quite so shamelessly bold. Tang San stood there, challenge shining in his eyes, utterly unashamed, and ready to back every claim with steel. No one moved. The tension crackled like a gathering storm, and in that moment, every spectator knew this confrontation was only just beginning. Chapter 143, Chance of Survival. Cheng Xiao's gaze was cold and dispassionate as he faced Tang San. "So you're itching for a fight?" he drawled. With a single fluid motion of his finger, he carved an invisible blade of air through the ropes binding Tang San. The cords snapped, and Tang San collapsed heavily to the ground. "Come here," Cheng Xiao commanded, his voice edged with power. "Feel the might of the ruler." He opened his hand, and a violent suction force erupted, yanking Tang San off the earth as if he were nothing more than a rag doll. Tang San's dark eyes flared with murderous intent, yet his body remained limp in Cheng Xiao's grasp. As Cheng Xiao bore down on him, Tang San's face stayed eerily calm, but his eyes blazed with fierce determination. "You dare insult my master time and again," Tang San hissed. "You and Douluo, scheming to seize this sacred land, you know nothing of respect. In my eyes, you both deserve death." With that final declaration, Tang San clenched his right fist. Pale blue soul energy crackled and danced across his knuckles, ready to strike back at the man who had so ruthlessly humiliated him. At last, with a rushing crack of wind, he clenched his fist and shot toward Cheng Xiao. His eyes turned ice-cold as he sensed the surge of soul power ahead. Cheng Xiao's expression remained unreadable, his body rooted to the spot. In a single motion, he drove his right heel into the ground so forcefully that it left a deep crater. Dark purple-black smoke coiled around his clenched fist. For a heartbeat, everything went silent. Then his fist slammed into Tang San's. Bang! The shockwave rippled outward. Tang San's right fist burst into radiant light, and at his feet his first soul ring blazed into existence. Instantly, his first soul skill, winding, activated. Dozens of sinewy blue-silver grasses erupted from the earth, writhing through the air toward Cheng Xiao like living whips. But before they could reach him, the air seemed to shudder. A long blade, wreathed in black mist, appeared in Cheng Xiao's left hand as if summoned from shadow. Dark flashes danced across his eyes. In the next instant, the blade sliced through Tan's summoned grasses with surgical precision, shredding each strand into fragments, mere husks of vegetation torn apart by that single devastating strike. Cheng Xiao's voice dropped to a whisper. Knife. In that instant, a sound only he could truly hear, his fist blurred into 1,000 strikes, slamming into Tang San's chest in a single, devastating assault. A muted crack echoed through the clearing as Tang San's ribs splintered. The pain sent him hurtling backward like a kite with a broken string. He smashed into the ancient tree behind him so forcefully that the trunk sheared in two. In that crash, the 3 members of the Golden Iron Triangle, still bound to the bark, were flung free as the wood shattered around them. Tang San coughed up a mouthful of blood. It arced gracefully through the air before splattering onto the forest floor. His body slumped, trembling, beneath the fallen leaves. Master's vision swam. His head pounded as if stricken by lightning. All the years he'd spent refining his martial theories, desperate for someone to put them to the test. Everything dissolved in an agony far sharper than any scholarly ambition. He had no children of his own, and in Tang San he had long ago recognized the son he'd never fathered. Now, seeing him so brutally beaten, a surge of helpless rage and grief struck Master to his core. He took a shaky breath, bracing himself against a nearby stump. This was no mere experiment in martial prowess. This was about the life or death of the boy he loved like a son. And from the echo of that single, whispered command, he knew nothing would ever be the same again. How could he stand by while his own disciple was beaten senseless, spitting blood onto the ground? No, Xiao-san, don't. In that instant, the great tree blocking their path shattered into splinters, and Master Dai sprang forward to Tang San's side. His chest heaved wildly, breath coming in harsh, rattling gasps, but his glare never wavered as he faced Cheng Xiao. Cheng Xiao, he's your classmate. You two spent 6 years together at Notting College, sparring, competing, and pushing each other to new heights. He swallowed, fury and disappointment warring in his eyes. I've long admired your rivalry, but today you struck Tang San without mercy. Don't you feel any guilt? If I'd known it would come to this, I never would have let him follow you on those soul-hunting expeditions, back when you were supposed to grow into soul masters side by side. Master Dai's finger trembled as he pointed accusingly. An ungrateful wretch like you deserves nothing less than to be struck down by heavenly thunder and judged by Ling Qi. No sooner had the words left his mouth than a roaring wind swept the clearing. Black smoke coiled around Master Dai, snuffing out the air. When the darkness cleared, a colossal figure stood in his place. Nash, the black-armored dragon, scales glinting like onyx under a midnight sky. Insult my king, and you bring shame upon yourselves, Nash rumbled, each word shaking the ground beneath their feet. With that, the dragon's massive fist propelled forward. The air itself screamed in agony as it warped and twisted beneath his power. Boom! With a thunderous crack, the master's face twisted in agony, and then he was gone, knocked out cold. It wasn't a graceful flip or a swept-away toss. One punch from the massive dragon Nash had rendered him senseless. Nash had zero tolerance for anyone daring to slander the king. If he'd unleashed his full power, that insect of a man would have been reduced to nothing but gore, and the fact that he'd spared him was only because the king himself had ordered restraint. Xiao Gang, Liu Erlong and Flender both froze at the sight. By the time they recovered, their master was already flying backward, limp and unconscious. Rage flared in Liu Erlong's chest. She gathered every ounce of her soul power into her martial spirit, determined to challenge Nash to the death. But Nash barely spared her a glance. The overwhelming force of his draconic bloodline swept over her like a tidal wave, and in an instant her newly formed spirit weapon shattered to dust. She stood helpless, her attack broken before it even began, as the giant dragon loomed over them with absolute, unchallenged dominance. No! Flanders cried, lunging forward the moment Liu Erlong's martial spirit began to shatter. Don't lay a hand on Sister Erlong. If you want to kill someone, kill me instead. Nash, the colossal dragon spirit, reared back in a murderous rage, ready to crush Flanders beneath his claws. But a firm hand settled on his scaled shoulder, halting him mid-strike. Good work, Nash, said Cheng Xiao. his voice calm as he gently patted the dragon. "That's enough now." Stepping between the dragon and Flanders, Cheng Xiao offered the dean an affable bow. "Dean Flanders, long time no see." Flanders stiffened, blinking in surprise. He studied Cheng Xiao's familiar features for a moment before forcing out, "Yes, it's been a while." A slow, confident smile curved Cheng Xiao's lips, revealing those unnervingly perfect teeth. "Last time we met, it seemed you were the one making threats," he observed. "Funny how the roles have reversed tonight." He gave a light chuckle. "But really, it was all a misunderstanding before. When your students got roughed up, you had to step in. After all, you're their dean." Flanders managed a tense nod. "I only did what I had to do." Cheng Xiao's grin widened. "And that, dean, is exactly why your reputation as a responsible leader precedes you." "Given your connection to teacher Qin Ming," Cheng Xiao began, nodding toward the motionless master lying unconscious in the distance, "I'll give you a chance." He let a slow smile spread across his face. "You could have stayed out of this entirely, but your good brother dragged you in to save his precious apprentice, and now you're right back in my hands." Cheng Xiao's eyes gleamed. "Here's the deal. Do exactly as I say, and I'll petition Senior Dugu on your behalf. He'll let you leave this place unharmed. Are we clear?" Flanders' body shook, terror flickering in his gaze. He knew exactly what Cheng Xiao wanted: betray his friends, turn on them, all to earn his own freedom. The very thought made him tremble. Could he really attack the people who risked so much for him just to secure his survival? He glanced first at Liu Erlong, who stood pale and unsteady, and then at Tang San. Tang San lay sprawled on the ground, one arm twisted painfully beneath him, grit lining his teeth as he fought through the pain. Flanders drew a deep, shuddering breath. Loyalty or life? There seemed no middle ground. His heart pounded, but his mind was made up. If this was the only way to survive, he would do it. He forced his shoulders square, stepped forward, and nodded. "I'll do as you ask." I hit send and leaned back, exhaling in relief. "Cheng Xiao," I typed, "I'll do as you ask. Just promise you'll let us go unhurt. Anything else is fine." No sooner had the words appeared on the screen than the cafe's ancient PC froze and shuddered. Sparks of static danced across the monitor before it powered off completely. Damn it, I needed that connection now more than ever. Chapter 144, The Merciless Cheng Xiao. Cheng Xiao's grin widened as he watched Flanders hesitate. A cold gleam flickered in his dark eyes. "Cripple your master," he said softly, "and then you may go free." Flanders recoiled. "That's impossible," he spat, voice shaking. "Cheng Xiao, you know master would never." Cheng Xiao cut him off with a dismissive wave. "If you won't maim him, you'll just have to wait here and be crippled yourself." In an instant, dozens of inky figures slithered up from the shadows at Cheng Xiao's feet. Shadow soldiers materialized, encircling Flanders and his two companions in a tightening ring of menace. A cruel smile curved Cheng Xiao's lips. "I almost forgot. Our dear three-eyed demon ape has a special interest in female soul masters. If you value Erlongmei's life, you'll obey me." With a single thought, Cheng Xiao summoned the monstrous ape. It vaulted from the darkness, its three glowing eyes fixed hungrily on the trio. Before anyone could intervene, the creature seized Liu Erlong by the wrists, its massive claws clamping down with unyielding force. "Erlong!" Flanders staggered forward, face ashen. He lunged for the ape, but the shadows held him fast. Cheng Xiao's laughter echoed through the courtyard. Flanders' chest heaved with panic and rage. He understood the cruel ultimatum: betray his master, or watch the woman he loved suffer in the demon ape's grasp. He hated the thought of hurting his brother, but even worse was the idea of watching a spirit beast violate the woman he loved. It felt like an unforgivable waste. "Boss Fu, please, don't hurt Xiaogang," Liu Erlong sobbed. "He's already lost his manhood. What will he do for the rest of his life?" Flanders froze. The survival of the Golden Iron Triangle hung on his next move. If they disobeyed Cheng Xiao's orders, none of them would make it out alive. Yet carrying out those orders meant condemning their master to a lifetime of disability. And if he stood by and let the beast ravage Erlongmei, just imagining it made his blood run cold. "Kneel," he whispered to Xiaogang. Then, louder, "Xiaogang, please understand. This is the only way. To save Erlongmei, I have to sacrifice you." Without another word, Flanders stepped out of the protective ring of his shadow soldiers. In one fluid, desperate motion, he seized a massive boulder lying nearby and brought it crashing down on Xiaogang's thigh. The blow echoed through the clearing, sealing his terrible choice. "No!" Liu Erlong cried in anguish, eyes fixed on Flanders as he raised the rough stone against the master's thigh. Bam! The rock shattered against bone, and a sharp crack echoed through the hall. Though the master lay unconscious, he jolted upright with a scream of pain. "Ah, Xiaogang, don't hate me," Flanders gasped, neither hesitating nor loosening his grip on the stone. "I can't stand by and let Erlong Mei be destroyed. Forgive me." With grim resolve, he brought the stone down again, this time crushing the master's arm in a sickening snap. Douluo, standing beside Cheng Xiao, involuntarily covered his mouth. "Impressive," he muttered, voice low but tinged with respect. "Your brutality rivals my own." Cheng Xiao laughed softly. "It's said that mercy to an enemy is cruelty to oneself. You know that as well as I do, don't you, old poisoner?" Douluo stroked his chin, a slow smile spreading across his face. "No wonder we're such kindred spirits." Cheng Xiao nodded, then gave a subtle wave to the three-eyed magic ape lurking in the shadows. When the three-eyed demon ape saw Cheng Xiao's subtle wave, he immediately understood and released Liu Erlong. In the next heartbeat, his massive frame dissolved into a curling plume of inky smoke, and watching their leader vanish, the rest of the shadow soldiers followed suit, each one dispersing like a wisp of dark mist. In truth, the three-eyed demon ape never cared for human soul masters, male or female. His true prey was another ape-like soul beast. Cheng Xiao had orchestrated the entire scene as a test for Forslore. Anders, what could be more compelling than watching allies forced into conflict? Moments later, the demon ape's pained shrieks died away. Flanders stood over where the creature had fallen, his limbs bound, barely conscious from a brutal beating that so thoroughly fulfilled Cheng Xiao's unspoken command it might have killed him. Satisfied that no one could fault his execution of orders, Flanders turned at last toward Cheng Xiao. Cheng Xiao, I did exactly as you asked. Now can we go?" His voice shook, betraying the tension he'd kept coiled inside. He stepped forward and froze. On the ground, slumped and bruised, lay Liu Erlong. Her once bright eyes were dull with pain, and when she lifted her gaze to meet his, Flanders felt a surge of guilt so intense he couldn't look back. Cheng Xiao watched him in silence, the faintest crease forming between his brows. Finally he spoke, his voice measured. Well done, Dean Flanders. You performed admirably." Cheng Xiao cast a glance at the half-conscious master not far away, then beckoned to Douluo. "Senior Douluo, you see? They've been punished as they deserved. I ask that you spare their lives." Part of Cheng Xiao wanted nothing more than to slake his hatred by killing them, but sometimes life is a harsher punishment than death. Besides, if he slaughtered these three outright, Douluo would be forced into exile in Tibet, and as a friend, Cheng Xiao didn't want to see him endure that fate. Letting them live would avoid far more complications than it created. Douluo stared down at the three stunned members of the Golden Iron Triangle. With a contemptuous snort, he spoke, "For Cheng Xiao's sake, I'll show mercy, but mark my words, if I ever see you again, stay well clear of me." Inwardly, Douluo knew it wouldn't personally trouble him if the Golden Iron Triangle and Tang San had died here. Yet he had a granddaughter to protect, and he couldn't spend the rest of his days hiding with Duguyan. Beyond that, how much longer could he sustain this fugitive life? Douluo hesitated only a moment. If he died here, who would look after his granddaughter? For her sake, and for his own, he would let these four go. He didn't fear their vengeance. Long before he became a titled Douluo, countless opponents had tried to settle old scores with him. None had lived to tell the tale. Flanders and Liu Erlong stared at one another in disbelief. To see Douluo's stern expression left no room for doubt. He was serious. Wasting no time, the two of them lifted the unconscious Tang San and his master onto their shoulders. "Thank you, Senior Douluo, for sparing our lives," Flanders said, bowing deeply. "The Golden Iron Triangle takes its leave." Without looking back, they hurried off, not daring to risk a sudden change of heart. As they receded into the distance, Douluo watched them go in silence, his resolve unshaken. Once the four of them had disappeared from view, Douluo shot Cheng Xiao a pointed look. "If it hadn't been for that dragon roar today, Nash's roar, I'd have poisoned those four to death myself." Cheng Xiao scratched the back of his head, looking sheepish. Actually, that roar wasn't Nash's. It was mine. Dugubo's eyes went wide. What? You're saying that was you? He gave Cheng Xiao a playful whack on the shoulder. Kid, you've got guts. I'm a titled Douluo, and when I heard that roar, my chi went haywire. If you'd aimed that at a soul master of equal rank, they'd have keeled over on the spot. He sighed and shook his head. Still, you're ruthless for someone so young. Too bad you let those three off so lightly. If it weren't for Yan Yan, I wouldn't have cared about cleaning up their mess. Cheng Xiao grinned. Ha! Old poisoner, if you had actually killed them, you'd have the blue electric Tyrannosaurus Rex and Tang Hao breathing down your neck. Cheng Xiao let a knowing smile play at the corner of her lips. At this rate, you'll end up losing more than you gain. Trust me, I'm here to help you stem the losses in time. Dugubo snorted and shook his head. Oh, spare me the K. Harity, kid. You're only saying that to butter me up. He cast a wary glance around at the rows of fairy herbs clustered nearby. Even if you did let me hole up here, I'd still hate to give up all these plants. You haven't even gone into hiding yet, Cheng Xiao pointed out. And if this plan blows up in your face, you can always turn to my master for backup. Dugubo scoffed. I don't need that old crow's help. There you go again, Cheng Xiao interrupted. You mean Master Chrysanthemum? Aye, Dugubo growled. That hermit's got his nose buried in his elixirs 24/7. I don't know how he hasn't driven himself mad, and I sure don't know how that ghostly fellow of his puts up with it. Chapter 145. People sit at home, and fortune drops from the sky. After carrying Tang San and their master down the mountain, Flanders and Liu Erlong did not immediately head back to camp. Poison surged through their veins, sapping their soul power and forcing them to move at a snail's pace. Worried about another soul beast ambush, they paused at the very foot of the mountain to rest, carefully laying their precious charges on a bed of grass. Flanders avoided Liu Erlong's eyes as he gently set the unconscious Tang San on the ground. His voice was barely more than a whisper. Sister Erlong, I'm sorry. I had no choice. If I hadn't acted, we would all have died. Liu Erlong shook her head, her exhaustion plain in every movement. Uncle Fu, it's not your fault. A weak smile curved her lips. If Xiaogong had been awake, he'd agree with what you did. For Liu Erlong, survival itself was comfort enough. No one truly wishes for death when a glimmer of life remains. She could have chosen to fall alongside their master, had there been nothing left to live for, but given the slightest chance, who wouldn't cling to life? It was the inescapable truth of human nature. A soft rustle interrupted them, and Tang San's lids fluttered open. He stared up at the sky, uncertainty clouding his eyes. Raising one trembling hand, he touched his legs. Erlong, my legs. Why are they? Everything stilled as his words hung in the air. The two who had carried him stared down in astonishment. Neither of Tang San's legs bore a single scratch. In the strange calm of the mountain's base, fate had chosen to smile upon them. Master Xiao lay sprawled on the cold bluestone slab, his body numb with pain. When he finally opened his eyes, a white-hot ache shot through him. He struggled to move and discovered he couldn't. Panic flared in his chest. Master Xiao, you're awake. Liu Erlong sprang to his teacher's side. Gently, he tried to help Master Xiao sit up, but the moment his weight shifted, the older man sank back like a puppet whose strings had been cut. Master Xiao's eyes blinked blearily as he scanned the courtyard overhead. Why can't I move? He rasped. His mind was a blur of fragments, a crushing blow to the head, darkness swallowing him, and a harsh voice cursing him as it hefted a stone. Then nothing until now. Flanders, leaning against the pavilion's railing, cleared his throat with exaggerated civility. Master Xiao, he called out, voice smooth as silk. Now that you're conscious, you must have an answer for me. What was your disciple, Tang San, doing sneaking through Dugubo's herb garden last night? He couldn't have gone in simply to collect medicinal plants, could he? The question landed like a gauntlet at their feet. Master Xiao locked eyes with Flanders, pain forgotten in the fire of his gaze. Liu Erlong's face flushed with indignation. Flanders, he began, but Flanders held up a hand. Am I wrong? Flanders asked coolly. I've heard rumors. I merely seek confirmation. Liu Erlong's jaw clenched. Rumors don't become truth unless you prove them. My master's student has never stolen so much as a leaf from an herb garden. A heavy silence fell, broken only by Master Xiao's steady breathing. Moonlight shimmered off the courtyard's carved pillars, casting long shadows at Flanders' feet. Though his body lay limp, Master Xiao's spirit burned bright. He would clear Tang San's name, and his own, no matter what it took. Master Zhang's face contorted with pain and fury as he hauled himself upright. "How dare he steal Dugubo's medicinal supplies?" he roared. "He's just using Xiaosun's talent as a pretext to slander and possibly kill my disciple." Before the older man could strike out again, Flanders slipped in beside him, restraining him with a firm hand on the shoulder. "Master, please calm down," he cautioned softly. "If Dugubo learns we're still here and stirring up trouble, it could be far worse for us. I've already examined Little San's injuries. Nothing's life-threatening, just a few fractured bones. Once we return home, I'll arrange for the best healers. He'll recover fully." Flanders lowered his voice even further. "And let's not alarm the younger students. Now that Dugubo knows Tang San's lineage, he's unlikely to attack again, at least for the moment. Our priority should be to lie low, avoid provoking him, and secure Xiaosan's Douluo title quietly." "Flanders, do you still have any backbone?" Master Zhang thundered, trembling. "Dugubo has harmed my disciple. Are you really suggesting we do nothing?" Flanders met his gaze without flinching. "Then tell me, Master, what would you have us do? Charge in blindly and invite our own destruction? If that's your plan, just say so." "Didn't you see how effortlessly Dugubo smashed our Trinity martial soul fusion?" Flanders' voice was edged with frustration. The master clenched his fists, grudgingly admitting the truth, even as it burned in his pride. He let out a long, defeated sigh. "You're right. If we want any hope of avenging ourselves against Dugubo, we have to accept this loss." He paused, gathering his resolve. "For now, let's get back to camp. Once we return, we'll mobilize every ally and resource to track down Xiaosan's father. With him on our side, we won't have to fear that so-called titled Douluo ever again." Flanders nodded. By this point, all three had recovered a portion of their soul power. The master was too weakened to stand, but he was conscious. Together, Flanders and Liu Erlong hoisted the master and his young disciple onto their shoulders and retraced their steps toward the camp. As the forest canopy gave way to the familiar clearing, the master winced with every rocky footstep. Finally, he dared to break the silence. "Second dragon. Flanders, do you have any idea who bested me so completely?" No answer came, only the soft rustle of their footsteps. Several days later, at Tiando Royal Academy, Cheng Xiao strode through the gates, fresh from his grueling ice and fire eyes training. He crossed the courtyard in measured strides, heading straight for his dormitory. Though he had been gone far longer than anyone anticipated, and his soul power had grown tremendously, home was exactly where he intended to be. Dugubo waved impatiently at Cheng Xiao. "Come on, let's see how Dugu Yan's cultivation is coming along." He'd been slipping away on his own too often, so this time he'd insisted Cheng Xiao come along to avoid raising eyebrows. They wound their way down a broad, tree-lined avenue, side by side, until their pace slowed and they stopped before an opulent villa nearly 1,000 square meters in size. This sprawling residence was reserved for members of the Tiando Royal Academy's Imperial Fighter Team, an honor granted only to top candidates. In order to foster unity, every fighter team student lived under this one roof. Each had a private chamber, but they shared the same mansion and all its luxuries. Pushing open the heavy doors, Cheng Xiao and Dugubo slipped inside and immediately spotted Dugu Yan at the far end of the hall, immersed in her training. Since consuming the Earth Dragon Golden Melon, her martial spirit had evolved into the Jade Phosphorus Snake King. Now, faint phosphorescent coils of energy curled around her, the Snake King's form already beginning to materialize as she moved with steady, focused grace. The Jade Phosphorus Snake King's scales gleamed around Dugu Yan like a summoned martial spirit, an echo of the blue electric Tyrannosaurus's famed dragon transformation, though undeniably weaker. After all, the gulf between a dragon and a snake was not a matter of mere inches. "Heh, brat," Dugubo drawled, tapping his chin with a wry grin as he eyed the 4 soul rings circling Dugu Yan. "That dead chrysanthemum of yours isn't half bad." Cheng Xiao could only shake his head. Whenever these two old fighters slipped into each other's nicknames, tempers flared in an instant. "Well," Douluo continued with mock solemnity. If the teacher finds out, we'll be at each other's throats again. Just then, a voice called from the stairway on the hall's second floor. Cheng Xiao, Senior Douluo, what's going on here? Yu Tianheng descended the steps, flanked by Yu Feng, Oslo, and the others. Cheng Xiao offered a respectful nod and a smile, but stayed silent. Douluo Yan's cultivation session wasn't yet complete. Any interruption could set back his progress. Douluo, however, fixed Yu Tianheng with a cold glare and said nothing. A tense silence fell over the hall as the two groups faced off, each aware that the slightest word might tip the balance. 2 days have passed since that incident, and Douluo still couldn't bring himself to look kindly on the Blue Lightning Tyrannosaurus clan, especially not the young man who had set his sights on Douluo's granddaughter. He'd even hoped Douluo Yan might pair off with Cheng Xiao instead, but his stubborn granddaughter only cared about Yu Tianheng. As her grandfather, he felt utterly powerless to change her heart. Rationally, he knew Yu Tianheng bore no blame, yet his irritation remained, and he now greeted the boy with barely concealed coldness. After snorting in displeasure, he turned his back. Yu Tianheng stood there perplexed. He had done nothing to warrant such treatment. Leaning close to Cheng Xiao, he whispered, Cheng Xiao, did I offend Elder Douluo somehow? Why is he so angry with me? Cheng Xiao gave his hand a reassuring squeeze. It's not you. He's upset with a soul master from the Blue Lightning Tyrannosaurus clan. He won't punish you, but don't expect him to be friendly. The matter was far from settled. The following day, they found themselves once again tucked into their usual corner of the internet cafe, searching for answers beneath the flickering screens. Chapter 146, Shrek Academy is in trouble. Yu Tianheng stood there, momentarily at a loss for words. Of course, now he understood why Douluo had been so intent on pairing up with him. He'd always felt the older man was targeting him, but he hadn't realized there was a deeper reason behind the insistence on collaboration. When he got home, he vowed to find out exactly who had crossed Douluo so badly. Didn't they know about his relationship with Douluo Yan? This was practically courting disaster. He forced himself to adopt a casual tone. By the way, Cheng Xiao, almost slipped my mind. The Continental Senior Soul Master Elite Tournament kicks off in a year. Teacher Sun Buyu asked me to remind you not to miss it. Cheng Xiao smiled and gave his shoulder a light pat. Thanks, Tianheng. Don't worry. I'm planning to take the others over to train, so I won't get in the way of you or Senior Douluo. Yu Tianheng nodded in acknowledgement. Then he turned to the Shi brothers, Osluo, Yu Feng, and the rest, and waved them forward. All right, let's head to the soul fighting arena and start our practice. With that, Yu Tianheng led his group away, already thinking ahead to the challenges that lay before them. After the last guests had drifted away, Douluo glanced over at Douluo Yan, who was still engrossed in her practice, then turned a sly smile on Cheng Xiao. You scoundrel, he teased. How would you like to be my grandson-in-law? Cheng Xiao's face went pale. He backed off, waving his hands in protest. No, old poisoner, thank you, but I'm content with things as they are. Douluo chuckled, his eyes gleaming. So you enjoy holding the upper hand? Don't forget how many would leap at the chance to join our family. Cheng Xiao scratched the back of his head, cheeks warming. Isn't it up to Sister Yanzi to approve any match? He muttered. Humph. Douluo flicked his sleeves and strode out of the room. I'm done with you for now, you naughty boy. With that, he shut the door behind him. Left alone, Cheng Xiao's gaze drifted to the spiral staircase leading to the second floor. After a moment's hesitation, he climbed the steps. Once he reached the landing, he paused to take in his surroundings, finally coming to rest at the railing of the balcony above. Cheng Xiao paused at the doorway, taking in the scene before him. Ye Lingling was perched on the windowsill, propped up on her elbows, hands lightly clasped beneath her chin. Dappled sunlight filtered through the panes, painting soft patterns across her slender form, while a gentle breeze drifted in, rustling the hem of her gown. For a long moment, Cheng Xiao stood motionless, his gaze almost blurred by the sheer serenity of her posture. Cheng Xiao, you're back? She asked, her voice warm and steady. Ye Lingling turned her head, and the world seemed to brighten. Without the black veil that usually concealed her features, her delicate face softened into a joyful smile. Cheng Xiao blinked as Ye Lingling's clear voice reached him, and he slowly came back to himself. He returned Lingling's warm smile with a wave. Long time no see. Long time no see, Ye Lingling echoed, his eyes lighting up at the sight of Cheng Xiao's slightly more mature face. He gave a soft chuckle. It sounds like your trip to the Sunset Forest suited you well. Tell me, what happened while you were away? Cheng Xiao nodded, stepping closer so they could share the view outside the carriage window. Endless plains unfurled beneath the late afternoon sky. A great deal, actually, he admitted. But I wasn't in any real danger. I returned with Sister Yanzi's grandfather. He's a titled Douluo, so you can imagine the stories he told. We conversed for hours, and before I knew it, time had slipped away. That's why I'm a bit late. Yi Lingling's eyebrows rose in genuine admiration. A long chat with a titled Douluo? That's quite the honor, and a rare opportunity. He paused, studying Cheng Xiao's face, then covered his mouth to hide a soft, satisfied smile. I can't wait to hear more. Cheng Xiao shook his head and smiled. Homo, Staley, it was just luck. Just then, Dugu Yan's excited voice rang out before she even reached the second-floor landing. Lingling, Grandpa told me, Cheng Xiao has come back. Is he here to see you? At the sound of her name, Ye Lingling, usually so composed, felt a rush of color flood his cheeks. He stole a quick glance at Cheng Xiao, then dropped his gaze and nervously twisted his fingers together. Cheng Xiao chuckled and stepped forward. Ha! Sister Yanzi, are you done with your training? Dugu Yan nodded, stretching luxuriously. The curve of her waist was accentuated by the form-fitting practice clothes, and Ye Lingling stiffened behind Cheng Xiao, his hands balling into fists. Noticing Lingling's discomfort, Dugu Yan let out a mischievous laugh. Lowering her voice to a playful whisper, she teased, Honestly, you're doing so much better than Yu Tianheng ever did. Cheng Xiao frowned, puzzled. What do you mean by that? Dugu Yan offered Cheng Xiao a warm smile and gave his shoulder a gentle, reassuring pat. It's nothing. Just keep working hard. I believe in you. With that, he turned and descended the staircase without another glance. Cheng Xiao watched him go, bewildered. As someone used to relying solely on his own strength, he found it nearly impossible to read the subtext behind Dugu Yan's words. Meanwhile, at Shrek Academy's training hall, Xiao Wu, Dai Mubai, Oscar, Juju King, and Ma Hongjun were in the midst of a Wuhun mimicry session under the watchful eye of Master Zhao Wuji. Zhao suspended several weighted stones in midair with a flourish of his gravity art, then barked encouragement across the ring. Faster, Xiao Wu, push your speed. Juju King, unleash your fiercest strikes. Don't hold back with those cat-like paws of yours, or you'll never win a fight. At that moment, a cluster of curious students hurried over to the training area, drawn by the thundering echoes of Master Zhao's gravity-enhanced drills. The 5 disciples braced themselves, ready to demonstrate every ounce of skill they had honed so far. When they reached the Wuhun mimicry training field, a group of students burst over, breathless with urgency. Master Zhao Wuji, one of them called. Someone's out by the gate, asking for Tang San and Dai Mubai. Zhao Wuji frowned in surprise. Who's looking for them? I'm not sure, the student admitted, shaking his head. But they're clearly from a powerful background. A powerful background, Zhao Wuji murmured, turning to the 5 who had paused their drills. Oscar, go fetch Tang San, Xiao Wu, Juju King, and Ma Hongjun. That's enough training for this morning. And Dai Mubai, come with me. Dai Mubai's heart skipped a beat, but he didn't hesitate. Nodding once, he fell in step beside Zhao Wuji as they made their way toward the academy gate. He tried to steady his breathing, but his eyelids twitched with impatience. Back in the training field, Xiao Wu and Juju King exchanged puzzled looks, but stayed at their stations, focused on their routines. Outside the heavy wooden gates of Shrek Academy stood an elderly man, his gaunt frame draped in flowing robes. In each hand, he held the arm of a young disciple, one on his left, another on his right, both staring at the gate expectantly. As Zhao Wuji and Dai Mubai approached, the old man's dark eyes gleamed with an authority that made Dai Mubai's unease deepen. Whatever this visit was about, it promised to be far more than a simple inquiry. Flanking him on the left stood a strikingly beautiful girl, no more than 15 years old. On his right was a middle-aged man, his bearing gentle and refined. These were Ning Fengji, Ning Rongrong, and Gu Rong. Chapter 147. Dai Mubai nearly dismantled. 3 figures stood sentinel at the gates of Shrek Academy, bone Douluo Gurong, sword Douluo Chenshin, and between them, the trembling form of Ning Fengji's only daughter, Ning Rongrong. In the Qibao Luli sect, it was tradition that whenever the sect master traveled, one Douluo would accompany him while the other remained to guard their stronghold. On the previous journey, Gurong had served as escort, so this time, Chenshin claimed that duty, insisting that protecting the princess took precedence. Neither elder was willing to back down, and after a fierce argument, both strode here together, determined to shield their little princess from further insult. For a long moment, they stood in absolute silence, the tension hanging thick in the air, until the gates groaned open. Master Zhao Wuji emerged, composed and unflinching, followed by Dai Mubai, whose usual swagger had vanished under the weight of the moment, and a gaggle of curious students. The sight of two towering Douluos flanking a single girl might have spelled disaster, but Zhao Wuji's initial readiness for battle dissolved in an instant. Relief swept through him. These were not hostile intruders, but Ning Rongrong's devoted protectors. Dai Mubai, by contrast, felt his spine tingle as if shattering under their scrutiny. Standing before two of Qibao Liuli's greatest champions, he realized his strength would count for little here. Since the day she first set foot at Shrek Academy, Zhao Wuji had known exactly who Ning Rongrong was, the treasured daughter of their sect master, and he offered her a reassuring nod. The true trial was only just beginning. "I'm sorry, but I can't help with that." Dai Mubai finally began to piece together who the two elders at Ning Rongrong's side might be. No matter how formidable they were, he'd always counted himself their superior. Yet ever since Zhu Zuqing had flatly rejected him, his cultivation had stalled. He'd lost precious training time, and his spirit power had barely climbed into the high 30s, still short of the threshold for level 39. The taller of the two elders, standing closest to Ning Rongrong, was like a living mountain, utterly still, radiating an unshakable might. Even Dai Mubai, brimming with confidence only moments before, felt the crushing weight of that presence. Zhao Wuji turned his attention back to Ning Rongrong. He meant to offer polite greetings to Ning Fengji and Spirit Douluo Gurong to inquire about their purpose here. But before he could say a word, Gurong's deep voice thundered out, "Who is Dai Mubai?" The question struck Dai Mubai like a bolt of lightning. His hair bristled on end as he instinctively stepped forward, eyes flicking nervously between the two elders. Under such overwhelming pressure, his trademark pride and arrogance dissolved, leaving only the raw, undeniable fear of standing before true power. Dai Mubai knelt before Grand Spirit Master Gu Douluo and Court Elder Ning Fengji, bowing so low he scarcely dared lift his head. "Senior, I'm Dai Mubai," he managed in a trembling voice. "Oh, you're braver than I expected," Gu Douluo said, arching an eyebrow as he regarded the young man. The moment he tapped into his soul power, his eyes glittered with a fierce light, and an imposing aura burst forth, as though a mountain had settled onto Dai Mubai's shoulders. Ning Fengji and Ning Rongrong involuntarily shuffled back, their faces pale. Zhao Wuji opened his mouth, ready to speak up, but froze under Gu Douluo's steely glare. Then, in a deep, resonant tone, the Grand Master spoke. "I admire your courage, Dai Mubai, but I'm told you've been bullying our Rongrong." Gu Douluo's gaze was sharper than any blade, and the invisible pressure in the air intensified until it felt as solid as stone. Dai Mubai's legs shook uncontrollably, and his teeth chattered. "See, Senior Gu Douluo, this must be a misunderstanding," he stammered. Watching his disciple so thoroughly cowed, Zhao Wuji's jaw clenched with silent fury. "I didn't ask for your opinion," Gu Rong said, his voice low and icy as he flicked a dismissive glance at Zhao Wuji. In the next instant, a suffocating pressure rolled off him like a tidal wave. Zhao Wuji's words died in his throat as the air seemed to thicken around him. He could neither move nor speak. "Senior, Senior," Dai Mubai stammered, his limbs trembling. The oppressive aura pressed so heavily on him that his legs gave way and he dropped to one knee. Gu Rong's lips curved into a cruel smile. "I know what you're thinking, that this is all some misunderstanding, right?" He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a whisper that carried through the stunned arena. "Very well. I won't strike you down outright. If you can endure 1 full hour without activating your martial spirit, I'll spare you." No sooner had the words left his mouth than the air around them warped. In a blur, Dai Mubai's body shot upward. He had no choice but to unleash his white tiger spirit. His face drained of color as veins stood out starkly, and a spray of blood burst from his eyes, ears, and nose. Before he could fully stabilize, Gurong's fist, powered by the might of a level 95 Douluo, connected with his chest. The impact sent Dai Mubai hurtling backward, skidding across the ground in a crimson arc. Silence fell as the Shrek Academy students rushed forward, hearts pounding at the brutal display of strength that Gurong wielded so effortlessly. Bone Douluo Gurong stood calm and still, radiating an aura so lethal it could have killed Dai Mubai instantly. Yet he held back. After all, Ningrongrong was the one person he would never let die. You might think the Seven Treasures glazed sect is no match for the Spirit Hall, but any time our sect extends an invitation to promising spirit masters, those who refuse simply vanish without a trace. The culprit behind every disappearance? Bone Douluo Gurong himself. Uncle Gu, remember why we're here, Ning Fengji said, narrowing his eyes. We're supposed to be cooperating with Tang San today. Please, no wholesale slaughter. Gurong's lips curved into a cold smile. Sectmaster Ning, don't worry. I won't kill him, at least not today. But bullying Rongrong isn't something you can fix with just an apology. With that, he unleashed a single palm strike, like the blow of ancient deadwood. The impact sent Dai Mubai skidding across the courtyard. He spat blood, his breath ragged and shallow. Even so, this was merely a demonstration. Gurong hadn't called upon his martial soul. With his own spirit power and physical prowess alone, he could treat a 30-plus level soulmaster like Dai Mubai as nothing more than a plaything. Indeed, whether or not he crushed Dai's skull was simply a matter of Gurong's whim, and for today he chose restraint. Dai Mubai lay crumpled on the ground, his body broken and bleeding. He desperately tried to summon his soul skill, but the Bone Douluo Gurong granted him no such chance. With nothing more than a single effortless slap, the titled Douluo sent him flying, so effortlessly that Dai Mubai, even at full strength, could not offer any resistance. Observers later would note that Gurong had restrained his power. Otherwise, that palm strike alone would have pulverized Dai Mubai's bones completely. As it was, every bone in his body was shattered. His once handsome face was swollen and drenched in blood, the features distorted almost beyond recognition. Watching this, Zhao Wuji, his teacher and mentor, felt fury boil inside him. Yet despite the righteous anger twisting his gut, he could do nothing. Even bearing the illustrious title of Akala, he stood powerless before Gurong's might. The Blind Bear's Douluo title, at spirit rank 95, eclipsed his own. Just as Zhao Wuji struggled with his helpless rage, a sudden cry split the air, an eagle's piercing call. A streak of movement flashed across the sky, and a figure descended, wings outstretched, alighting lightly before Zhao Wuji. Bone Douluo? Sect Master Ning, I still don't understand how my student offended you so gravely that Senior Bone Douluo fell, compelled to act with such severity. On top of that, my own day has been a disaster. 2 days ago, the repair shop told me my motherboard was beyond hope. Today, they called back to say there might be a problem with the RAM, so now I have to wait another 2 or 3 days. I'm so screwed, I've ended up coding in an internet cafe, and I've got to be at work early tomorrow. Chapter 148, The Selfish Merchant. Cat Eagle Martial Spirit, 78th level Fighting Soul Saint, Flyhorn Flanders of the Golden Iron Triangle. I know exactly who you are. Flanders' challenge cut through the air, but Bone Douluo remained perfectly calm. To him, Flanders was nothing more than another soul saint, hardly a threat he couldn't dispatch on a whim. He gave Old Zhao a lazy shrug. Old Zhao, explain what's happening here. Flanders didn't answer right away. Instead, he crouched beside Dai Mubai, who lay sprawled on the ground, drenched in blood and barely clinging to consciousness. He shot Zhao Wuji a frosty glare. Why were my students attacked as soon as they arrived? What have you got to say for yourself? Zhao Wuji's expression twisted with guilt and helplessness. Boss, they struck without warning the moment we showed up. I swear, I don't know why. At that, Flanders' features grew even colder. He rose to his full height and leveled a glare at Bone Douluo. So this is your idea of justice, Seven Treasures glazed sect? You ambush my disciples and dare to call it fair play? Bone Douluo allowed himself a faint, mocking smile. Must I spell it out? You beat up my juniors. Naturally, I'll step in to defend them. That's simply the way things work. A tense silence followed, broken only by the ragged breaths of the wounded Dai Mubai and the distant clash of spirits preparing for the next round. Neither side was willing to back down, and the air crackled with the promise of renewed combat. But for now, the insults had been traded, the stakes laid bare, and the true battle was only just beginning. Gurong's voice rang out across the training courtyard, cold and unyielding. "Tell me," he said, eyes narrowing on Dean Flanders, "do you honestly think you can claim the little princess of the Seven Treasures glazed sect as if she were yours? That your shabby academy has the right to bully her whenever you please?" Flanders bristled under the glare. He was a soul saint, but he wasn't a true contradiction, Douluo, far from it. Confronting Gurong in the open like this was a gamble he could ill afford. He opened his mouth, only to see Dai Mubai's fists clench. Everyone here knew about Dai's simmering feud with Princess Ning Rongrong. As the Academy's dean, Flanders felt compelled to intervene. He couldn't simply watch one of his star pupils get roughed up. Yet the balance of power was brutally clear. Dai Mubai might be a prince of the Stardew Empire, his family formidable in its own right, but against the Seven Treasures glazed sect, one of the continent's top 3 powers, he was outmatched. The sect boasted 2 titled Douluo, whose combined strength could obliterate the entire Xingluo royal house. Unless the Stardew Empire unleashed its full armies, a move almost unthinkable, the glazed sect's Sword Douluo and Bone Douluo, wielding their soul arts in unison, would leave the royal lineage erased, without a single trace. On the Douluo Continent, strength is law. Might makes right. Dai Mubai had already been badly beaten. If he'd fallen in battle, even death wouldn't have moved the Xingluo royal family to intervene. After all, who would dare provoke a Tidal Douluo? No one in their right mind would challenge such power. Gu Douluo was poised to hurl another insult at Dean Flanders when Ning Fengji stepped in, his voice calm but unmistakably firm. "Dean Flanders, I admit Uncle Gu has been a bit excessive," he said. "But Dai Mubai isn't without fault either. You know as well as I do how he and Uncle Jian have always viewed Rongrong as a thorn in their side." He paused, confident that Efland would read between the lines. Flanders forced a brittle laugh. "Well spoken, Sectmaster Ning. You truly live up to your reputation as leader of the Qibao glazed sect. When it comes to spinning words, I have to admit, I'm outmatched." Inwardly, he seethed. He would have loved to fire back, but Ning Fengji's courteous deflection left him no choice. His own Douluo title and personal strength simply weren't enough to turn the tide. "ID. Sectmaster Ning, really, there's no need for all this," Flanders said, forcing a polite smile and swallowing his pride. "Flanders, it was my lack of oversight that let Mubai insult your princess from the Seven Treasures glazed sect," Ning Fengji said with mock regret. Flanders forced a smile, his lips barely concealing his anger. He nodded stiffly in return. Seeing how calm and affable Ning Fengzi appeared, Flanders felt a surge of contempt. This man was the very definition of a hypocrite, but he had no ground for objection and bit back his words. "By the way, Director Flanders," Ning Fengji continued, his tone polite, "we've come to your hospital today to see Tang San. Could you tell me where he is?" Flanders' forehead twitched. "Looking for Tang San?" he asked, voice suspicious. "May I ask why you wish to see him, Sectmaster Ning?" "It's nothing urgent," Ning Fengji answered with a serene smile. "I only hope to propose a collaboration." Flanders' features darkened. He was about to refuse outright when a puzzled voice called from behind him. "Dean Flanders? Master Zhao Wuji? Oscar told me someone here is looking for me." Tang San's tone held a note of curiosity as he addressed the 2 senior figures. Flanders turned stiffly, only to find Tang San and Oscar striding toward him, their expressions puzzled. Nearby, Ning Fengji and the Bone Douluo, Gu Guangzuo, also spotted Tang San and instantly connected through spirit communication. "Fengji, I've got a bad feeling about this Tang San," Gu Guangzuo murmured, eyes narrowing. "Could he really be the one who forged those lethal hidden weapons?" Ning Fengji tapped his chin thoughtfully. "Who he is doesn't matter. What matters is that he created them. If the Qibao glazed sect obtains these weapons, even our novice disciples will have a fighting chance." True to his mercenary nature, Ning Fengji was already visualizing mass production and lucrative blueprints, undeterred by Tang San's modest appearance. At that moment, Tang San's gaze shifted to Dai Mubai, cradled in Master Zhao Wuji's arms, his clothes soaked in blood, a stark reminder of the very real danger still lingering in the air. Tang San paused in surprise as he recognized the newcomer. Not long ago, this man had also been swathed in bandages, laid up for days before finally reclaiming his mobility. "Are you Tang San?" the man called out, stepping forward. Though his bearing was gentle and refined, there was an unmistakable authority in his measured tone that left Tang San momentarily taken aback. Tang San gathered himself and regarded him with wary interest. "Who are you?" Just then, Flender, standing close by, cleared his throat. "Master Ning Fengji," he announced with a respectful bow, "chief of the Qibao Glazed sect and father to Ning Rongrong. This is Tang San." Ning Fengji inclined his head once, his eyes appraising Tang San before he spoke again. Meanwhile, Flender shot a quick, covert gesture toward Zhao Wuji, who stood behind clutching Dai Mubai. Understanding the cue, Zhao Wuji steered Dai Mubai away, hurrying him back toward the academy grounds. Oscar, watching all this unfold with an unreadable expression, showed no surprise at Dai Mubai's departure. Word of the incident had already reached Dai Mubai through Ning Rongrong and Juju King, and at first he had dismissed their account as mere exaggeration. But when Master Mahongjun confirmed the truth, Dai Mubai realized that the two he once considered brothers had behaved far worse than he ever imagined. As the dust settled, Tang San and Ning Fengji stood facing one another on the academy grounds, each sizing up the other. In that charged silence, alliances would be tested and new bonds forged by the secrets still waiting to be revealed. Oscar found himself at a crossroads: remain at the academy, rubbing elbows with worthless scoundrels, or accept the Seven Treasures Glazed sect's invitation, and with it, the chance to pursue Ning Rongrong after graduation. He chose the latter. Though still weak and far from a match for most spirit masters, he refused to resign himself to a lifetime of mediocrity. If he was given an opportunity to grow stronger, he would seize it, even if his only talent lay in auxiliary spirit techniques rather than outright combat. A short while later, Oscar accompanied Ning Fengji and her retinue to the academy gates. As they paused at the threshold, he dropped into a respectful bow. "Sect Master Ning, I am the Tang San you asked to see." Ning Fengji returned his greeting with a gentle smile. "Dean Flanders, please prepare a quiet chamber. I wish to have a proper talk with junior brother Tang San." Dean Flanders inclined his head, though a flicker of reluctance crossed his features. "Master Ning, you're a most welcome guest. Right this way." He ushered her and her companions inside the academy, the grand doors closing behind them. Tang San hesitated before following. The dean laid a hand on his shoulder. "There's something I need to discuss with you first," he said quietly. Tang San nodded. Whatever it was, he steeled himself. He was ready. "Dean, what exactly did Ning Rongrong's father want to speak with me about? And why is Brother Dai lying here so badly beaten?" Tang San frowned in confusion. Flanders exhaled and quickly filled him in. Apparently, he ran into a titled Douluo and got thoroughly trounced. A titled Douluo. Tang San's face darkened. He still smarted from his own recent defeat at Douluo's hands, and now his brother had suffered the same humiliation. Oddly enough, Tang San felt a surge of sympathy for him. Just then, Ning Fengji and Gu Douluo departed the academy hall, and through the gates stepped two more figures, Xiao Wu and Juju King, who'd heard the commotion and come to see what was going on. Chapter 149, Giving Your All is a Sign of Respect for Your Opponent. Xiao Wu hurried over to Dean Flanders, eyes wide with curiosity. "Dean, what was that racket just now?" Standing nearby, Juju King maintained her usual cool composure. She'd followed Xiao Wu out when she saw Zhao Wuji holding Dai Mubai in a tight grip. She couldn't resist watching. Dean Flanders sighed and waved off the curious onlookers. "Nothing for you to worry about. Let's head back." Xiao Wu pouted in mock protest, but she shrugged. "All right." She slipped her hand into Juju King's and turned to leave. Just then, Tang San's voice stopped them. "Xiao Wu, since you're close with Ning Rongrong, could you do me a favor?" Xiao Wu and Juju King paused and glanced at each other. After everything they'd endured, even the least perceptive among them would know to stay sharp. Tang San wasn't the type to go into a challenge unprepared. By enlisting Xiao Wu's help, he hoped to test Ning Rongrong's attitude and make sure he didn't walk straight into any schemes that might come from Ning Fengji's camp. After all, playing it safe was not only smart, it was the Tang sect way. Xiao Wu was already halfway around when Tang San's voice stopped her. She paused, pivoted, and a flash of impatience crossed her gentle features. "What does my friendship with Rongrong have to do with you? And why on earth should I help you?" Tang San's face went pale. Her words cut him like a blade, and for a moment he could hardly catch his breath. He managed. "Just because I'm close to Rongrong doesn't mean that you care about her?" Xiao Wu finished coldly, her dark eyes narrowing. "You despise Rongrong, yet you expect me to exploit our friendship so you can dig up information for yourself. Hypocritical much?" She took a step closer, voice low and steady. "Back at Notting College, you weren't like this. Ever since you started following the master, you've pulled away from everyone. Perhaps this is your true self, after all." With that, she turned on her heel and strode off, Juju King falling into step beside her. Tang San stood rooted to the spot, watching their backs recede, each step a fresh pang in his heart. Tang San stood frozen, his vision filled with the receding image of a pink silhouette. He instinctively reached out, trying to seize it, but his fingers closed on empty air. "No, don't go," he whispered as the figure drifted farther away, until at last it dissolved into the nothingness before him. The world shifted. The throne room's grand pillars and vaulted ceiling materialized around him, and seated at its center was a man with long, flowing blue hair. Beside the throne stood the same pink figure that had eluded him moments before. Tang San's breath caught in his throat. That's me?" he murmured, staring in disbelief. The man on the throne shared every feature, same proud chin, same confident bearing, save for the hair color. It was as if he were gazing at his own reflection in a mirror of another world. A subtle understanding flickered through Tang San's mind, though its meaning remained just out of reach. He drew a steadying breath as the vision began to fade. When the throne room dissolved, he blinked, and the only evidence of his vision was a faint, menhue golden mark shimmering on his forehead. His thoughts sharpened in an instant. Now that the path before him had been revealed, there was no turning back. He would protect his interests with every ounce of his strength, whatever this new power might demand. He spun on his heel and strode toward the academy, determination sparking in his eyes. He'd arranged a meeting with Ning Fengji to discuss cooperation, specifically Ning's interest in his hidden weapon designs. He wasn't about to pass up the chance to profit from it. A few days earlier, before Douluo had knocked him unconscious, he'd surreptitiously slipped several immortal herbs into his soul guide. Douluo had been so focused on subduing him that he never noticed the herbs. Now Cheng Xiao had the perfect leverage. Once I finalize terms with Ningzi, he thought, I'll set aside time to cultivate these herbs myself, and since Xiao Wu won't come near me, I'll entrust them to Dai Lao Da and Ma Hongjun. They'll appreciate the gesture, and it'll strengthen my ties with them. Tiando City, within the walls of the Tiando Royal Academy. After a long, productive conversation with Ye Lingling in the dormitory, Cheng Xiao walked with her across the shaded quadrangle toward the Royal Fighting Team's training grounds. Since Qinming's departure, Sun Buyu had risen to captain the team, and as a member himself, Cheng Xiao felt it only right to pay his respects and catch up on their latest drills. He pushed open the gate to the sparring arena, ready to report in and eager to see what new challenges awaited under Sun Buyu's leadership. Cheng Xiao and Ye Lingling pushed open the attic door and stepped into the Royal Fighting Team's training hall. The low, sloping ceiling was crowded with mats, training dummies, and bundles of data scrolls, yet the space felt electric. With every breath, the air practically hummed. Yu Tianheng, Du Guyan, and half a dozen other teammates were sprawled on the floor, chests heaving and faces flushed, droplets of sweat tracing rivulets down their armor. "You just finished a drill?" Cheng Xiao asked, pausing in the doorway. Concern flickered in her eyes as she took in their exhaustion. Yu Tianheng cracked a wry smile and nodded toward Sun Buyu, who was hunched over a stack of parchments, quill flying across the pages. "Team leaders switched up our tactics again. We've been running through new formations all morning." Cheng Xiao raised an eyebrow. "And you two?" She gestured to herself and Lingling. Ready to join in? He shrugged, then shook his head. Nothing like that. Lingling told me Qin Ming has departed the team, so I thought I'd drop by and say hello to you, team leader's son. I'm still on the roster after all. Cheng Xiao laughed softly. Of course, we wouldn't leave you out. Yu Tianheng grinned, fatigued but pleased, and folded his legs into a cross-legged posture. He closed his eyes and let his inner aura settle, smoothing out the after-effects of their grueling workout. Ye Lingling and Cheng Xiao found 2 empty mats at the edge of the room and sat down. No sooner had they settled than Sun Buyu glanced up from his recording. His quill paused mid-stroke, eyes bright with relief. Cheng Xiao, he exclaimed, rising to his feet. I was beginning to wonder when you'd return. He set aside his parchments and hurried over, his excitement palpable. Cheng Xiao smiled in greeting. Sorry to keep you waiting. Qin Ming's departure took us both by surprise. Sun Buyu ran a hand through his hair. It did, but we'll adapt. I've already started logging new data on every fighter's soul power output. With you back, our next phase of drills will be even stronger. Ye Lingling leaned forward, curiosity shining in her eyes. What's the plan, leader son? Sun Buyu gestured toward the training dummies. First, we refine the group synchronization technique you two developed last season. Then we incorporate elemental resonance drills to broaden our tactical options in the field. Cheng Xiao exchanged a glance with Lingling. Sounds challenging. Sun Buyu laughed. We wouldn't have it any other way. Welcome home, Cheng Xiao. With that, the royal fighting team reassembled around their leader, the attic once again alive with purpose and promise. That sounds good. Just tell me your soul power level, and I'll record it. Afterward, you can spar with Yu Tianheng. I want to see your true combat ability. At Teacher Sun Buyu's words, the training hall fell silent. Members of the royal fighting team all turned to Cheng Xiao. Teacher Sun, do we really have to spar right now? Cheng Xiao scratched the back of his head, cheeks reddening. I only just broke through to level 43 soul power, and Lingling said that Tianheng only reached level 40 recently. It wouldn't be much of a contest. Then spar with me. Du Guyan strode forward, laughing. Thanks to Che, Xiao, my martial soul evolved, and my soul power just hit level 46. Let's have a friendly duel. A hush settled over the room again. Du Guyan sat cross-legged and began circulating his soul energy. Yu Tianheng, now fully recovered, cleared his throat. Yanzi, he called to Du Guyan, why don't Cheng Xiao and I have a sparring match instead? I want to see exactly how big the gap is between his strength and mine. Agreed, Tianheng. Sun Buyu waved his hands emphatically. Du Guyan, you may rank high in soul power, but your combat skills clearly trail behind Yu Tianheng's. If he hadn't held back, could you really have beaten him so easily? Du Guyan fell silent. She shot a resentful glare at Yu Tianheng, snorted in disdain, and slipped away to rest by the sidelines. Sun Buyu turned to Cheng Xiao with an expectant look. Cheng Xiao, what do you say? Cheng Xiao paused, then rose deliberately to his feet. He cracked his neck and smiled. All right, teacher son. If you want to see me fight Tianheng, I won't back down. But once I call on my martial soul's full power, Tianheng won't enjoy any advantage, will he? Sun Buyu blinked in surprise. Having only recently joined the Great Emperor fighting team, he still didn't fully understand the true scope of Cheng Xiao's martial soul. The chamber fell silent as Yu Tianheng stepped forward, a confident smile playing on his lips. Your martial soul is formidable, he admitted, his eyes glinting with amusement. With a light tap of his toe against the stone floor, he vanished, only to reappear atop the fighting soul stage in a flash of blue electricity. Lightning crackled around him as he raised a hand toward Cheng Xiao. Never forget, I'm the Blue Lightning Tyrannosaurus Rex, wielder of the continent's strongest beast martial soul. I have no intention of backing down. Cheng Xiao returned his smile with a cool, steady gaze. He shrugged one shoulder and replied, Very well, I'll match you blow for blow. Give me all you've got. This is the duel you came to see, after all. Yu Tianheng nodded, his grin widening. Perfect. Before either could hesitate, Cheng Xiao's form blurred in a burst of light. When the afterglow faded, he stood directly opposite Yu Tianheng, their auras crackling in anticipation of the fight to come. Chapter 150. Dragon Transformation. As soon as Cheng Xiao found his balance in the arena, A soft, familiar voice drifted over his shoulder. "Go for it, Cheng Xiao." He turned and offered a small, appreciative wave to the spot where Ye Lingling stood. Around the ring, every member of the royal fighting team fixed their eyes on the two combatants, one in midnight black, the other in deep sapphire blue, anticipation crackling through the air like static. Beside Ye Lingling, Duguyan's lips curved into a teasing smirk. "Lingling, this is new. You've never cheered for a boy before." Ye Lingling's cheeks warmed under his gaze. She nudged him gently. "Don't tease me, Yan Yan. Tell me honestly, if Cheng Xiao loses, you won't be upset, right?" "Upset?" Duguyan echoed, a flash of surprise in his dark eyes. Then his lips curled down into a frown as he stared at the blue-clad fighter on the platform. "Why would I? If he loses, it only means the other guy was stronger today. There's nothing to be angry about." Ye Lingling laughed quietly at his earnestness, but both their gazes sharpened as the two opponents squared off. The roar of the audience faded into the charged hush of the arena. In the moments before battle truly began, everyone held their breath, ready to witness what might become a clash of dragons. Cheng Xiao squared off against Yu Tianheng, fists clenched and a wry smile on his lips. "How shall we settle this?" he asked. "First one to hit the ground admits defeat." Yu Tianheng inclined his head in agreement. "Deal. Let's begin." "Fight!" Cheng Xiao roared, and Yu Tianheng responded with a steady nod. Suddenly, a brilliant blue light flared at the center of his brow, cascading downward over his body in crackling arcs tinged with violet. His frame didn't swell dramatically, but a lightning blue sigil glowed on his forehead, and his forearms bulged, armored with shimmering scales. His hands split into razor-sharp claws, veins of electricity dancing over the desiccated metal beneath. Cheng Xiao studied this completed dragon transformation. Now was the moment to test the runestone skill he'd received from Nash, his own dragon transformation. He tightened his grip, determination flashing in his eyes. It was time to unleash his power. In the end, Yu Tianheng realized his blue lightning Tyrannosaurus Rex dragon form was even more formidable than his regular dragon transformation. Before he could fully register the difference, a sharp boom erupted beneath his feet, and in that instant, Cheng Xiao's figure trembled and vanished without a trace. Yu Tianheng's eyes widened. His third and fourth soul rings flared to life, bathing his arm in crackling blue light. There was no time for hesitation. As captain of the royal fighting team, he refused to taste defeat. "Third soul skill, Thunder Fury," he roared. "Fourth soul skill, Blue Lightning Dragon Speed." Lightning crackled around him as Thunder Fury took hold, doubling his lightning power and boosting his soul strength by 50%. A glowing sphere of blue energy condensed in his outstretched palm. Then, with a sudden step forward and a swift pivot, he swept his leg in a massive, backward-arching kick toward the spot where Cheng Xiao had just disappeared, unleashing all the power he had stoked into his transformed form. A crackling roar split the air, and in an instant, a sinuous azure dragon formed from pure thunder surged toward Yu Tianheng. Its scales glittered with blinding electric light as it swept in from behind. "So it was you all along," Yu Tianheng crowed, preparing to counterattack, only to halt in stunned disbelief. He stared at Cheng Xiao's outstretched arm. Jagged scales, identical to those lining the Thunder Dragon's flanks, rippled under his skin. But these scales shone with an otherworldly pearlescent sheen he had never seen before. He shook his head. He isn't a dragon martial soul. How could he possibly transform into one? 1,000 questions raced through his mind. Was it a hidden second soul? A secret dragon lineage? Twin martial souls, one of the were a dragon. He felt his footing shift as his mind reeled. Before Yu Tianheng could gather his wits, the electric dragon dissipated in a flash, and Cheng Xiao was suddenly standing only meters away. Sparks danced along his arms, illuminating the narrow battle chamber with staccato flashes of blue-white light. The air around him crackled and warped. In that charged moment, neither man spoke. Each awaited the other's next move, both poised on the edge of a revelation that would change everything. Cheng Xiao's lips curled into a confident smirk. "It's powerful," he said, "but it's worthless against me." In an instant, his arms shimmered with draconic energy. Rippling scales of emerald and gold hardened his flesh like armor. Yu Tianheng's Thunder Dragon attack crackled with raw lightning, but against Cheng Xiao's newfound defenses, it barely registered more than a light tickle. Unnerved by Cheng Xiao's easy composure, Yu Tianheng's eyes darted back and forth, pupils contracting into pinpoint urgency. With a roar, his own arms transformed into jagged dragon claws sparking with electricity, swinging to meet Cheng Xiao head-on. Watching Yu Tianheng lunge, Cheng Xiao's heart thrummed with restrained power. If all Yu Tianheng had were these crackling claws, the duel would be over in a heartbeat. He let the assault come, then met the electrified strike with his stone-hard dragon scales. The impact exploded in a thunderous bang as Cheng Xiao's claws deflected Yu Tianheng's blow, sending him skidding back. Seizing his moment, Cheng Xiao drew a deep breath. Light coalesced at his throat, pooling like molten gold, and his eyes flared scarlet. This was Nash's ultimate technique, the breath of the light dragon, an unstoppable torrent of searing radiance capable of obliterating anything in its path. At Yu Tianheng's current level of power, even a fleeting touch of this dragon breath would turn him to ash. Yu Tianheng staggered, horror widening his eyes as Cheng Xiao lifted his head, haloed in brilliant light. He realized too late that he was about to face an attack beyond anything he had ever imagined. Cheng Xiao's dragon claws swept through the air as he activated his fourth soul skill, the Blue Lightning Dragon, a massive azure drake, several meters long, crackling with thunder, surged toward Yu Tianheng. In that same instant, Cheng Xiao drew in a lungful of breath of the radiant dragon. His eyes flared, and a pillar of crimson flame, roaring with destructive force, blazed forth. The nascent lightning dragon, caught in the inferno, was incinerated before it could strike. No sooner had the spirit beast vanished than Cheng Xiao's figure blurred into existence directly in front of Yu Tianheng, as though summoned by fate itself. "You lose," he declared, the corner of his mouth curling into a confident smirk. His powerful claws shot forward, aimed straight at Yu Tianheng's chest. Facing certain defeat, Yu Tianheng unleashed the might of his blue electric Tyrannosaurus Rex martial spirit. Crackling arcs of cerulean energy wove together into a shimmering net, flaring to life before his torso in a desperate attempt to block the attack. But imagination is always kinder than reality, and the oncoming assault was far stronger than he could withstand. At the very moment Yu Tianheng believed he had held the blow, Cheng Xiao's colossal dragon claws tore through the crackling energy net as if it were spun silk. Brilliant arcs of electricity dissipated into the air, and the claws came to rest a mere few centimeters from Yu Tianheng's chest. A stunned hush fell over the crowd gathered below the arena. Members of the royal fighting team stared in disbelief at those massive, scaled talons, far thicker and more imposing than even Yu Tianheng's own draconic arms. They exchanged bewildered glances. Cheng Xiao's martial soul was supposed to be the shadow wraith. How could he suddenly manifest a dragon spirit on par with the captain's? "Wait, does Cheng Xiao have dual martial souls?" someone murmured. "Or did he somehow awaken the same dragon spirit, as our captain?" A second voice broke in with dawning comprehension. "That explains why he overcame the captain so easily. Cheng Xiao is a dragon spirit master too, and his dragon soul might be stronger than the captain's blue lightning Tyrannosaurus." Even Douluo Yan, who had long acknowledged Cheng Xiao's hidden strengths, found herself silently conceding that she had vastly underestimated him. In that charged silence, everyone realized they were witnessing a power far beyond ordinary expectations. Cheng Xiao lowered her sword, breathing a sigh of relief. On paper, her soul power was higher than Yu Tianheng's, yet throughout the duel he had managed to keep her on the defensive at every turn. Only when he deliberately eased off did she finally break through and claim victory. Douluo Yan watched with a wry smile. He really is a master at concealing his weaknesses. We all fell for his illusions. Most of the onlookers nodded in agreement, convinced that Cheng Xiao was the true prodigy, with her rare twin martial spirits surging in harmony. Only Ye Lingling's sharp gaze lingered on Tianheng, a flicker of doubt in her eyes. Cheng Xiao sheathed her blade and turned to the pale-faced Yu Tianheng. The iridescent dragon scales that had snaked up her arm shimmered one last time before fading away. She offered him a steady hand on the shoulder. "Thank you, Tianheng," she said softly. Yu Tianheng straightened, brushing off the hand, but his eyes remained distant, as if already plotting tomorrow's challenges. The gathered students exchanged impressed glances, unaware that behind that calm exterior, far more was at play than a simple sparring match. Chapter 151. The Younger Brother Falls. Here Comes the Elder. I never expected you to have twin martial spirits, Yu Tianheng said, shaking his head in astonishment as he took several steps back. He could still feel the lingering pressure of those massive dragon claws, far thicker than his own, hovering just inches from his chest. In a real fight to the death, he would have been impaled instantly. Unbelievable, murmured Yu Feng, the wind chime bird soul master, leaning forward at the edge of the fighting soul stage. Cheng Xiao's 2 spirits alone would be enough to challenge any soul master. Most of them would kill for 1 spirit of that caliber, and he's got 2. Everyone watching was equally stunned. They knew Cheng Xiao was strong, but no one expected Yu Tianheng, also a level 40 soul master who wielded the blue lightning Tyrannosaurus spirit, to be so decisively beaten by a fellow level 40 like Cheng Xiao. As Cheng Xiao's hulking draconic form melted away and he returned to his ordinary appearance, Yu Tianheng studied him closely, curiosity and grudging respect flashing in his eyes. After a thoughtful pause, he finally spoke. Cheng Xiao, how did you do that? How did you transform into a dragon? I've always felt that your dragon form is far more powerful than mine. Cheng Xiao chuckled and nodded. Well, technically, I didn't just shift into a dragon. I ascended into a true draconic entity. Those words stopped Yu Tianheng cold. Though dragon form and draconic entity might sound similar, the gap between them is colossal. Even Patriarch Yu Yuanjin of the Blue Lightning Tyrannosaurus clan can only sustain the draconic entity state for a fleeting moment after invoking his martial soul true body. In their entire lineage, anyone who attains that form before earning the rank of titled Douluo is guaranteed to succeed as the next patriarch. Yu Tianheng and his brother had long been hailed as the clan's twin prodigies, 2 of the most gifted young fighters in living memory, yet neither had ever touched even that fleeting draconic entity threshold. At best, they'd only managed the standard dragon form. He bowed his head, a wry smile touching his lips. Cheng Xiao, Yu Tianheng graciously concede defeat. Since I've lost to you, there's nothing more to say. As Yu Tianheng's spirit possession faded, a heavy solemnity settled over his features. He met Cheng Xiao's eyes with a grave nod. If you ever need anything in the future, just ask. I'll do my utmost to help. Yu Tianheng was far from a fool. Witnessing Cheng Xiao's talent, especially his rare twin martial spirits, he knew the young man was destined for greatness. If he could support Cheng Xiao now, while he was still growing, both the Academy and Cheng Xiao himself would reap the rewards. Cheng Xiao inclined his head and allowed himself a small smile. Thank you. Actually, I was just discussing something with Sister Yanzi's grandfather, and I'd appreciate your assistance on that matter. He gave Yu Tianheng a friendly pat on the shoulder, then turned to face the rest of the royal fighting team. His smile grew brighter as he took in their expectant gazes. At that moment, Instructor Sun Bayu, who had been painstakingly recording every detail on his data tablet, quietly withdrew. After all, it was unprecedented for Tiando Royal Academy to discover a genuine genius wielding twin martial spirits. Sun Buyu intended to report Cheng Xiao's extraordinary potential to the 3 members of the Education Committee at once, ensuring the Academy did everything it could to keep him in its ranks for as long as possible. Sun Buyu had no idea that while he was scheming to hold on to Cheng Xiao, she was quietly plotting to peel a few more members off the Royal Do team for her own purposes. After all, she couldn't leave all the groundwork to Douluo, right? Meanwhile, back at Shrek Academy, in one of the quieter study lounges, Tang San and the Imperial Arms Master Ning Fengji had just finalized their agreement on a shipment of hidden weapons. Tang San, knowing his unique skill in crafting these deadly but discreet armaments, demanded and received a hefty deposit up front. Then, with more audacity than subtlety, he leaned back and grinned. You know, Ning Fengji, once you've got these weapons in hand, you'll be held to your word. I won't let you off easy. Ning Fengji, however, was no stranger to power plays. He recognized just how indispensable Tang San's creations would be to the dueling world, and how quickly Tang San's demands could be repaid with interest. So, after a polite nod of agreement, Ning Fengji excused himself and sought out Flanders, the Academy's registrar. Within the hour, the paperwork was in motion. Flanders would withdraw Tang San from his current courses, and in exchange, Ning Rongrong would be enrolled at the prestigious Tiando Royal Academy. By the time Tang San left the quiet lounge, he was already picturing the roster of potential students at Tiando, and the possibilities, both for profit and for forging alliances. He steered his steps toward the master's office without pausing. Pushing open the heavy door, he found Grandmaster Wang Wei seated behind his desk, his shoulders slumped and his face drawn with worry. It was the first time Tang San had seen him look anything less than unshakable. "Master?" Tang San asked softly, closing the door behind him. Wang Wei glanced up, masking his concern with a tight smile. "Come in, Tang San," he said, though his voice betrayed the trouble weighing on him. "We have news." As Tang San took a seat before him, he braced himself. Whatever was coming next, he knew it would change everything. Tang San sat up on the sofa in the master's office, his brow furrowed with confusion. "Teacher, what's the matter?" The master shook his head, a wry smile tugging at his lips. "You remember how Xiao Wu defeated Tai Long, the younger brother? Well, his elder brother has just shown up." Tang San's expression darkened. "So he still refuses to leave?" "He won't budge," the master admitted, running a hand through his hair. "Tai Long's grandfather is a Seoul Douluo-level powerhouse. Flanders and the other instructors have tried to persuade him, but he just sits outside the gate, refusing to move." Tang San sprang to his feet, determination lighting his eyes. "Teacher, let me go. Maybe I can talk him down." The master's eyes widened in surprise. "You have a plan?" Tang San nodded confidently. "Just leave it to me." The master hesitated for a moment, then gave a reluctant wave. "All right, but be careful. Your arm still isn't fully healed." "I will," Tang San replied, then turned and strode from the room. Outside the gates of Shrek Academy, Tai Long and Tai Luo stood side by side, facing the entrance. Behind them towered an imposing figure, an old man with shock white hair and beard, both bristling like steel needles. He was easily twice the brother's height, his broad shoulders and immovable posture giving him the solemn presence of a mountain, calm yet unyielding. Titan's stooped figure seemed at odds with the vitality brimming in his every step. Tai Long and Tai Nuo stared at him in wide-eyed reverence. None dared question that this was Titan himself, the revered patriarch of the Power Clan. At 80-some years old, he still commanded respect as an 86th-level power-type Seoul Douluo, earning him the nickname Hercules. Renowned as one of the world's 3 greatest blacksmiths, he was known for his unwavering loyalty, his generosity to clan and kin, and his fierce protectiveness. When his master Tang Hao was cast out of the Haoyan sect, Titan had unhesitatingly led his people away as well. "Grandpa," Tai Long pleaded, bowing low and clasping his hands to his chest, "please come back with us, and bring father too. What are you doing here by yourself?" A forced smile wavered on his lips. Titan rounded on his son and grandson, hands planted firmly behind his broad back. His gaze, steely and unyielding, swept over them. "Silence," he thundered. "If I hadn't just heard that you'd been soundly beaten by a girl, I wouldn't be this furious. Don't ever presume that your father, or anyone else, can control your grandfather." Tai Nuo, lips parted to speak, dared only to swallow her words in the sudden hush. Xiao Wu had learned early on that Tai Tan's temper was ferocious. Trying to explain himself now would be like asking for a beating. She lingered at the academy's gates, arms folded, watching as Tai Tan unleashed a torrent of insults on his grandsons, Tai Long and Tai Nuo. The 2 boys stood with their heads bowed, unable even to defend themselves. With a cold snort, Xiao Wu broke the silence. "Tai Long," she called out, her voice low but carrying across the courtyard, "you haven't earned the right to court me. Dream on." The words hit Tai Long like a blow. He flushed scarlet, shame burning his cheeks, and he dared not look her in the eye. "Girl, that's enough," came Tai Tan's growl. He stepped forward, elbow cocked in warning. "You forget yourself. My grandchildren may not yet be the strongest, but they have talent, and I've chosen you because you're remarkable in your own right, out of respect for their potential and for your beauty." He paused, eyes narrowing. "If you refuse to curb your insolence, you'll find you've disqualified yourself from ever becoming our clan's granddaughter-in-law." "Granddaughter-in-law of your clan?" Xiao Wu's temper ignited. Her frame trembled with fury. "I never asked for that honor, and I certainly don't need it. Before the tension could erupt further, a calm voice intervened. Elder Flanders, who had been watching from a shadowed doorway, stepped into the clearing. "Xiaowu," he said quietly, "you owe Taitan and his grandson some respect. We're all here to learn, not to squabble." Xiaowu drew in a shaky breath, her anger cooling into simmering defiance. She turned her gaze to Taitan and the two boys, silently daring them to continue. The courtyard fell into an uneasy hush, each waiting to see who would blink first. Senior Titan regarded Xiaowu coolly and said, "Please step back, juniors. Let them handle this on their own. If you interfere any further, it won't do either of us any good." Flanders shook his head. "I don't want trouble with you, Titan. All I ask is that this little girl simply stay by my side for the length of one incense stick, and I'll leave without causing more disturbance." "Refuse, and I won't go so easily." Xiaowu's cheeks flamed bright red at the insinuation, her fists clenching at her sides. She opened her mouth to protest, but no words came. Behind her, the students who'd gathered in a semicircle exchanged uneasy glances. Tension crackled in the air as Flanders' gaze swept over them, daring anyone to step forward. At that moment, a ripple of movement stirred in the hallway. A figure clad in flowing cerulean robes appeared at the entrance to the academy courtyard. The blue-clad student paused, surveying the standoff with calm, unreadable eyes. Flanders frowned. "Ah, so now the prodigy chooses to show up, Senior Zhao?" Senior Titan, Zhao Min, stepped fully into the circle of onlookers. She turned to Flanders, her expression composed but cold. "You won't take her. If you have a quarrel, settle it through proper channels, not this childish extortion." Flanders' lip curled in a sneer. "Proper channels? You sound like you're her champion." Xiaowu surged forward, as if to defend Zhao Min, but Titan extended a hand, gently holding her back. "Xiaowu, stay where you are." Heaving a steady, controlled breath, Zhao Min met Flanders' gaze. "You've already lost. Leave now, and perhaps you'll walk away without further embarrassment." For a long heartbeat, Flanders glared back. Then, with a final, scornful snort, he spun on his heel and stalked off down the corridor. The trailing edge of his cloak rustled ominously, but he made no move to harm them, today at least. As the footsteps faded, an uneasy silence settled. Xiaowu burst forward, tears of relief and anger in her eyes. "Senior Zhao, thank you." Zhao Min released the smaller girl and offered her a gentle smile. "Are you all right?" Xiaowu nodded vigorously, her relief spilling over. "I thought I was done for." Behind them, the other students began to applaud, a few even cheering. Zhao Min waved them away. "Let's get back inside. Classes start in 10 minutes. Together, Zhao Min and Xiaowu led the way back into the academy, the morning's tension dissolving as they walked. Though the threat had passed, both knew the day was far from ordinary, and the true test was only just beginning. Chapter 152, Unintentional Trouble. Tangsan stepped out of the academy gates just as Dean Flanders and Xiaowu came into view. Flanders, who had been standing behind Xiaowu, started in surprise. "Tangsan, what are you doing here?" he asked, his brow furrowing. Tangsan offered a confident smile. "Dean, I think I've found a way to resolve Xiaowu's problem." Flanders' eyes lit up. He turned to Xiaowu, who was still trembling with anger at Madame Taitan, and after a moment's hesitation, said in a firm voice, "Xiaowu, come back here. Tangsan says he can handle it." Xiaowu whirled around, startled. "Dean, what does Tangsan have to do with this?" she demanded. Flanders gave a reassuring wave. "Don't worry about the details. If Tangsan says he has a solution, then let him try." "All right," Xiaowu muttered, unable to hide the doubt in her voice. With a pout, she retreated to stand behind Dean Flanders, casting a wary glance at Tangsan's confident expression. Tangsan nodded, meeting Flanders' gaze. He could feel Xiaowu's uncertainty bubbling just behind him, but he refused to let her down. Whatever the trouble entailed, he would see it through and prove that he could indeed make things right. Tangsan sensed Xiaowu's curious stare and couldn't resist the chance to show off. He straightened his shoulders, let his gaze meet Titan's, towering over him by a good head, and called out coolly, "Senior Titan, have you ever seen one of these before?" With that, a coil of inky light spiraled into his right palm, solidifying into a sleek jet-black hammer. At the sight of it, Titan's eyes went wide. "The Clear Sky Hammer! It really is the Clear Sky Hammer!" He staggered back, awe written all over his features. No sooner had Titan recovered than he learned from Tang San's own words that his young opponent was the son of Tang Hao. In an instant, his reverence shifted gears. Before the watching crowd, Titan dropped to one knee and bowed his head. "Young master," he breathed, voice thick with loyalty, "I swear my life to you." Xiaowu jolted at the sudden deference in Titan's tone. Her eyes flicked to the war hammer in Tang San's hand and went cold. This was the very hammer she'd come to Shrek Academy chasing. Recognition sharpened her expression, and her features darkened with unease. She offered no protest. With a quick, offhand excuse for Flanders, she slipped into the academy halls. Tang San watched her go, a small smile tugging at his lips. He hadn't planned on revealing the clear sky hammer in public, yet ever since Xiao Wu's refusal that day, fragments of unexpected memories had begun to surface in his mind. At first, he dismissed them as echoes of his own time travel paradox, figments he couldn't trust. Now, however, he felt certain these recollections pointed to events he was destined to experience. Stranger still, those visions placed him not on Douluo Continent but within the lofty halls of a grand palace. Maybe, he mused, he could use what he'd seen to reshape today's outcome. He blinked, turning toward the spot where Xiao Wu had stood, only to find it empty. The pink figure that had once been there had vanished. Later, in the silent seclusion of Shrek's training chamber, Tang San withdrew a folded letter from his belt, the one his father, Tang Hao, had entrusted to him. Titan hovered at the edge of the room, her expression a mix of curiosity and concern. Tang San broke the seal and began to read. As each line passed before his eyes, Titan's brow furrowed deeper. When he finally looked up, the weight of his father's words hung between them. Titan glanced at the letter again, confusion and a flicker of awe crossing her features. Whatever Tang Hao had written, it was powerful enough to leave both of them unsettled and determined to discover what lay ahead. He couldn't help but murmur under his breath, "Master, how did you fall so low? A blacksmith who only lives to get drunk. I remember when you were as steadfast as the hammer itself." Titan's eyes brimmed with tears. His beard quivered as he stared off into the distance, bewildered. "Senior," Tang San pressed, "you said my father was born into the Haochen sect. So why did he and I end up in Holy Soul Village? What happened in between?" Fragments of memory danced at the edge of Tang San's mind, too scattered to form a clear picture. He leaned forward, voice urgent. "Please, tell me." Titan bowed his head, regret and hesitation in his gaze. "Young master, I cannot simply tell you." He paused, as if weighing his words. Then, after a long moment, he spoke with deliberate calm. "But if I know you already understand everything, I have no reason to hold back. First, tell me of your own experiences with your master these past years." Realizing that this was the only way to learn the truth, Tang San took a steadying breath. He began at the beginning, recounting every trial and triumph of his life. His early days of training, the friendships he'd forged, the countless battles he'd fought. Most painfully, his clashes with Cheng Xiao. Piece by piece, he laid his story before Titan, hoping in return to hear the missing chapters of his family's past. Tang San's jaw tightened. He sensed that if he didn't confront this stranger, someone whose face never once appeared in his fragmented memories, he would never attain the heights he'd once glimpsed. In all those echoes of his past, he had never felt such profound humiliation. What? Someone dares to disrespect the young master? Titan's eyes flared with righteous indignation. Composing himself, he asked solemnly, "Young master, where is this Cheng Xiao? Name the place, and I will see that justice is done for you." Tang San gave a light, dismissive laugh. He ran a hand through his hair. "No need to trouble yourself, Senior Titan. It's just a minor quarrel between Cheng Xiao and me. Still, he's unmistakably hostile, and since I haven't yet bonded with the Clear Sky Hammer spirit, my strength is severely limited." Titan hesitated only a heartbeat before replying, "Then allow me to accompany you, young master. I will protect you." Tang San bowed in mock ceremony, a playful glint in his eyes. "Thank you for your kindness, senior. But there's something you should know. Cheng Xiao's martial spirit is extraordinarily strange, and rumors say he's even taken a life." Tang San sat alone in the hushed inner chamber, deep in thought. The soul master he'd just slain, whose martial soul bore an uncanny resemblance to an orangutan, might have been linked to his predecessor. He still couldn't be certain. Humph. Titan's voice rang with cold displeasure. Young master, rest easy. I'll send someone under the radar to eliminate that Cheng Xiao who insulted you. Your honor will be avenged. Tang San offered a wry, bitter smile. Thank you, Senior Titan. Cheng Xiao's arrogance is insufferable. If he were removed, I'm sure the Resurrector factions would be all the calmer for it. Very well. Titan bowed respectfully. I'll take my leave then. Please keep yourself safe here at the academy. I will. Tang San inclined his head in acknowledgement, watching as Titan and the two elder Taizans slipped away down the corridor. Once their footsteps had completely faded, he let out a slow, steady breath and rose to depart the room. A few days later, in the Wuhun mimicry training grounds of Tiando Royal Academy, Cheng Xiao, come here. Cheng Xiao, who'd been overseeing the shadow soldiers sparring with the Imperial fighter team, nodded and called to the enormous dragon at his side. Nash, I'm stepping out for a while. You take over. Coordinate the three-eyed demon ape and the others. The dragon lowered his head respectfully. Understood, Your Majesty. Cheng Xiao gave Nash a friendly pat on the shoulder. Just be careful that none of the soldiers hurt my friends. With that, he turned and left the training ground alongside Master Sun Buyu, who had come to see him off. No sooner had they gone than Nash's expression hardened. He loomed over the panting Huangdo students huddled on the ground, his voice chillingly calm. Brr, eek's over. If you want to grow stronger, prove it. Back to training. A shudder ran through every trainee. In that instant, it felt as though the very sky above Tiando Royal Academy had come crashing down on them. Chapter 153, 7-Star Academy. In a secluded chamber of Tiando Royal Academy, a striking blond man in sumptuous robes lounged on a velvet settee, his expression composed and untroubled. Beside him stood a lean figure shrouded in shifting shadows. The man on the settee was in fact Qian Renshui, disguised as the noble Shui Qingye, and the silent sentinel at his side was the snake-spear Douluo, Yulong. A few days earlier, Qian Renshui's network of spies around Prince Shuixing had intercepted a startling report. The notoriously irascible poison Douluo, Douluo, was said to be preparing to establish his own academy. The academy's purpose remained a mystery, yet Qian Renshui knew well that Douluo detested needless fuss and would never organize such an enterprise himself. Rumors from a Gallican Douluo indicated that Cheng Xiao enjoyed an unusually close relationship with Douluo. Even Douluo Yueguan had recently traveled to Douluo's secluded residence in the Sunset Forest to discuss the same matter. Determined to learn the truth, Qian Renshui had traveled to Tiando Royal Academy and arranged a meeting with Cheng Xiao. Now they waited. Qian Renshui tapped her fingers against her teacup, her patience wearing thin. We've been here for ages, she said softly, though her voice carried a sharp edge. Why hasn't he shown up yet? Yulong remained motionless, the soft hum of his spear's aura the only response. The shadows around him curled and uncurled as if waiting for orders, but he said nothing. The two of them sat in tense silence, eyes flicking to the door, each lost in their own thoughts, as they prepared for the arrival of the one man who might unlock the poisoned Douluo's secret. Since Cheng Xiao's departure from the prince's mansion, the once unshakable young master had grown strangely unsettled. To keep the raging fire of his emotions from overwhelming him, Snakespear Douluo had even mastered the art of silence, refusing to speak a single word. Hidden in the shadowed corridor outside the private parlor, Douluo heard approaching footsteps. He leaned close to Qian Renshui, murmured a few urgent words, then slipped away through a side passage before anyone noticed. Moments later, the heavy door to the parlor creaked open. Cheng Xiao entered with his attendant, Sun Buyu, who had already discreetly filled him in on the visitor's identity. Cheng Xiao's expression remained composed. There was no hint of nerves in his stride. Sun Buyu bowed before the prince, voice respectful. Your Highness, Cheng Xiao has arrived. Shui Qinghe inclined his head with a faint smile. Welcome, Cheng Xiao. I apologize for the summons. Sun Buyu's face brightened at the prince's gracious tone. He offered a quick bow in return and slipped out without delay. The moment the door clicked shut, the parlor fell into hushed silence. Cheng Xiao met Shui Qinghe's steady gaze for a heartbeat, then moved to a plush velvet settee. He sat down deliberately, folding one leg beneath him, his posture relaxed yet alert. Across from him, Shui Qinghe remained standing, lantern light dancing over his composed features. In the stillness, the two simply regarded each other, neither rushing to speak, both waiting for the other to break the quiet. "You have nothing to say?" the Crown Prince Shui Qinghe snapped, frowning. "Thanks to my cousin's glowing recommendation, I expected much more." Cheng Xiao chuckled, his deep purple eyes dancing with amusement as he met the prince's gaze. "Expected more? Whatever do you mean?" Shui Qinghe glanced away, then sighed. "Speak plainly, Cheng Xiao. My cousin, she has quite the crush on you. I didn't come here with any other purpose. I simply wanted to see the man who so enchanted my beautiful cousin." "Is that all?" Cheng Xiao's smile widened. "I am certainly honored by your highness's visit, but if I'm honest, I'm even more curious to meet this cousin of yours. Conversations with a lady of such charm are far more enjoyable." A forced laugh tugged at Shui Qinghe's lips, but inside, his anger burned. If Shui Qinghe had known Cheng Xiao would take the easy way out instead of making trouble for her, she never would have bothered impersonating him, and now, here she was, tripping over her own scheme. Cheng Xiao waved a hand playfully, tapping the tip of his nose. "Ha ha, your highness the crown prince is too kind. May I ask what brings you to my estate today? Don't tell me it's about securing a husband for your highness's cousin. I'd feel insulted if you summoned me for matchmaking." Shui Qinghe gave him a cool, assessing look. "Rest assured, with my cousin's strength and beauty, she hardly needs help finding a husband." She inclined her head. "I came here on a different errand. I heard a rumor that Senior Douluo plans to found a new high-level Soul Master Academy open to the common people. I understand you and the poisoned Douluo are close, so I thought you'd be the best person to confirm whether that's true." Cheng Xiao's expression sobered. "That much is indeed true, your highness. I've already advised Senior Douluo against it, told him the existing academies only take the very best applicants, and he'd undercut their standards if he opened his doors to everyone. But Douluo is headstrong. Once he's set an idea in his mind, he rarely lets it go." He paused, eyes drifting toward the scrolls piled on his desk. "If this academy does come to pass, it could change everything, for better or worse," he added quietly. "I'll share what I can with you, your highness, but you must decide for yourself whether such a venture merits support." Cheng Xiao sighed and ran a hand through his hair. No matter their birth, nobles and commoners alike rarely get a fair shake at serious training. When I enrolled at Tiando Royal Academy, it was only thanks to Sister Qianshui's intervention that I even got in. Shui Qinghe tilted his head, studying Cheng Xiao with mild curiosity. "A school exclusively for civilians. It's a noble idea, but starting an academy takes a small fortune. Do you really think poisoned Douluo Dubo can scrape together enough funds?" Cheng Xiao shrugged. "If money is the only hurdle, we could always borrow. The bigger issue is royal approval. Without it, our graduates would be barred from the continent-wide Soul Master Elite Tournament, no matter how well they train." Shui Qinghe's lips quirked into an affectionate smile. "You're always so thoughtful, brother Cheng Xiao." Cheng Xiao's cheeks tinted pink. "Well, it's only natural." He paused, then studied Qinghe with sudden seriousness. "But tell me, did you say Douluo's real aim is simply to qualify for the elite tournament?" Shui Qinghe shook his head, spreading his hands. "I honestly don't know. If you want the full story, you'll have to ask Douluo yourself." Shui Qinghe let out a long, low breath, rubbing his palms together. "Brother Cheng Xiao, setting up the academy is actually feasible," he admitted, eyes gleaming. "But you have to let me invest, at least give me that. I want 1/3 of the school's controlling stake, essentially the same authority as a dean." Cheng Xiao blinked, clearly taken aback. "That's all it takes?" He frowned thoughtfully, then asked, "Will your cousin be joining?" "She's exceptional. I'm sure she could even enter the tournament." At the very mention of Qian Renshui, Shui Qinghe's expression darkened. "Brother Cheng Xiao, why do you always bring her up?" He squared his shoulders. "Fine. I'll check with her. If she agrees to join, I'll let you know. Is that acceptable?" Cheng Xiao nodded without hesitation. "Sure. It was only a thought. If Qian Renshui does come, all the better. It'll keep that other troublemaker in line." Inwardly, he smiled. He hadn't officially pledged himself to the Spirit Hall yet, though he felt Douluo's influence pulling him closer every day. And if Bibi Dong forced him into their ranks, he'd have no choice but to accept. But should Qian Renshui throw in her lot with him first, he'd leveled the playing field, and Bibi Dong would have no leverage over him at all. Shui Qinghe raised an eyebrow. You agreed so easily? He shook his head, then flicked his fingers, and the next instant, a purple and gold card appeared between them, 9 shimmering ripples dancing across its surface. This is a 9-pattern purple-gold card, he explained. It's loaded with soul gold coins. Don't worry about taking out loans to launch the academy. Consider this my share. With that, he pressed the card into Cheng Xiao's palm. Cheng Xiao didn't bother with formalities. Thank you, Your Highness, he said, tapping the card directly into his soul guide. He glanced up. By the way, have you and Douluo decided on a name for the academy? Shui Qinghe's interest sharpened as Cheng Xiao paused, choosing his words. Finally, he looked the prince in the eye and said, We'll call it 7-Star Academy. Chapter 154, The First Enrollees. Once he'd extracted the answer he'd been seeking, Shui Qinghe's smile grew even brighter. He chatted with Cheng Xiao for a few more minutes, then rose to his feet. Brother Cheng Xiao, he said, if you ever run into trouble with the Academy's affairs, feel free to come to the prince's mansion. You still have the token my cousin gave you, don't you? Cheng Xiao dipped into a respectful salute, answering with a warm smile. Of course, Your Highness. I won't hesitate to call on you. Shui Qinghe inclined his head in acknowledgement. Excellent. Let's wrap up for today. I have other matters to attend to. Until next time, Brother Cheng Xiao. With a courteous bow, the prince turned and walked out of the room. Cheng Xiao watched his retreating form for a moment, shaking his head in quiet amusement. Then he raised his hands, and a billow of inky black mist swirled around him. In an instant, he vanished, leaving the shadow soldiers who'd been stationed in the chamber blinking in confusion. Moments later, Cheng Xiao reappeared at the Wuhan mimicry training field, ready to resume his duties. The barracks at Huangdou rang with the clash of steel and the roar of Dou techniques as the Royal Dou team raced to drive back wave after wave of shadow soldiers. Not a soul dared relax. Every fighter's eyes were locked on the shifting phalanx of black silhouettes surging toward them. In truth, Dragon Nash had orchestrated the entire spectacle, using Cheng Xiao's newly activated shadow exchange technique to cloak each ambush in perfect surprise. With Yelingling hovering nearby, Nash felt no real worry for his comrades. These shadow soldiers might kill them again and again, but no one truly perished. This was pure, unending trial by fire, and it would go on until Nash decided the lesson was complete. Just as Nash was considering how to crank up the challenge even further, a column of inky mist erupted in front of him. In an instant, the whirling shadows coalesced into a single, imposing figure. Without hesitation, Dragon Nash knelt, one knee pressed to the ground. My king, he intoned with solemn respect. The swirling darkness dissipated to reveal Cheng Xiao himself. He flicked away the last tendrils of black smoke and gave Nash a casual nod. Rise, he said, voice crisp. Call off the drill for now. Let them catch their breath. Nash bowed his head once more, then stepped back, signaling the end of the exercise. Around them, the exhausted members of the Royal Dou team lowered their weapons, faces streaked with sweat and relief. The trial was over, at least until Nash saw fit to resume. I have something to say. At his words, Nash, the colossal dragon, rose to his full height. With a single snap of his massive talon, he halted the shadow soldiers who had been hemming in the Imperial battle team. Mid-assault, the phantom warriors froze, their blank eyes turning in unison to Cheng Xiao, who stood at the side of the Legion commander. Your Majesty, they intoned, bowing low in a show of reverence. Cheng Xiao inclined his head once and then turned to his own squad. He found Yu Qianheng swaying on tired legs, sweat matting his hair to his brow. Wiping his face, Yu Qianheng managed a weary smile. But, I'm back, he said, voice rough from exertion. Beside him, Yu Feng collapsed to the ground without ceremony, lying flat on his back as though the earth itself had pulled him down. The rest of the Imperial battle team, having endured the ferocity of Cheng Xiao's absence, a trial so severe it might have been hellish, now surrendered to exhaustion. Helmets slipped, armor buckles clattered loose, and one by one they curled into rest wherever they stood. Cheng Xiao watched them for a moment, then faced the shadow soldiers. He lifted a hand in a graceful arc, and the phantoms wavered, dissolving into swirling tendrils of black smoke that were drawn back into Cheng Xiao's own shadow. The mimicry training grounds fell silent. Surveying the Huangdou troops, helpless figures strewn across the grass, breathing shallow and deep, Cheng Xiao settled into a calm stance. His arms moved with deliberate purpose, weaving a series of intricate hand seals. A faint hum of power began to ripple through the air as the new seal took shape beneath his steady gaze. A sudden surge of emerald light blossomed from every member of the Huangdou tribe. In an instant, a wave of sheer comfort washed over them, and all signs of exhaustion simply vanished. Yu Tianheng stared at Cheng Xiao in stunned silence, his weariness completely gone, replaced by a startling sense of vigor. Beside him, Yu Feng, who'd been running on fumes, could hardly contain his excitement. "Cheng Xiao," he exclaimed, "what kind of soul skill is this? It heals faster than Lingling's restoration technique. It's astonishing." At Yu Feng's words, the assembled cultivators all leaned in, curiosity alight in their eyes. Only Du Guyan remained impassive. He'd already been briefed by Du Gubo about Cheng Xiao's unique abilities. Even Ye Lingling, renowned for the potency of her own healing spirit, gazed over in surprise. "So your martial spirit," someone murmured. "It's not only for combat, but also for reconnaissance, support, and self-enhancement? A hexagonal martial soul all in one?" Cheng Xiao offered a wry smile, running a hand through his hair. "I'll tell you everything soon enough," he said. "But I can't go into details right now." With that, he turned his attention back to the grateful Huangdou tribespeople, ready for whatever challenge lay ahead. Yu Tianheng looked up. "Cheng Xiao, was that Prince Xue Qinghe who came to see you just now?" Cheng Xiao smiled and nodded. "Yes, but it's hardly surprising that His Highness the Crown Prince would call on me. In fact, I've been meaning to tell you all that Sister Yanzi's grandfather, Poison Douluo Dugubo, and I are planning to establish a truly elite Soul Master Academy. Admittedly, it started out as nothing more than an idea, and I wasn't sure it could actually happen." She paused, then continued. "Thanks to the Crown Prince's support, however, we've just resolved all the outstanding issues with the royal family. We'll be selecting a site soon, and I expect classes to begin before long. That brings me to why I invited you here today. I want to know if any of you would like to join us in founding this advanced academy." The moment Cheng Xiao finished speaking, the entire room fell silent. Everyone who had been chatting and laughing a moment ago froze, their expressions a mixture of surprise and disbelief. After a moment's hesitation, Yu Tianheng cleared his throat and asked, "Cheng Xiao, when you say this new academy relies on His Royal Highness the Crown Prince's patronage, do you mean that transferring here from Tiando Royal Academy won't count as a job change?" Cheng Xiao snapped his fingers and grinned. "Exactly. Tiando Royal Academy answers directly to the Empire, and our school, founded by His Royal Highness Du Gubo and myself, does too. So moving from Tiando Royal Academy to ours won't offend the royal family in any way." He paused, then added gently, "I'm only explaining all this because we've been through so much together. I won't force anyone to join. If you decide against it, I'll understand." Du Guyan rose to her feet without a second thought. She glanced at Yu Tianheng, a playful spark in her eyes, and declared, "Well, since this is Grandpa's academy, as his granddaughter, I'll be the first to sign up." Yu Tianheng forced a wry smile. "Cheng Xiao, to be honest, I never planned on teaming up with you. You're young, and even with Senior Dugu's backing, your strength still leaves much to be desired." He paused as though weighing his next words. "That was my old way of thinking. From now on, I'll join forces with you, no strings attached." "Boss?" Oslo and Yufeng blurted in unison, their surprise plain on their faces. Yu Tianheng swept his gaze across them. "Oslo, Yufeng, sometimes you have to look ahead. If you cling to preconceived notions, you'll spend the rest of your life regretting it." His tone brooked no argument. They remembered all too well how swiftly Cheng Xiao had dispatched Yu Tianheng in their last duel. Yu had been defeated in mere seconds. Now he saw it clearly. If Cheng Xiao continued to grow unchecked, his name would soon top the entire continent's list of champions. That realization made Yu Tianheng's decision an easy one. Besides, members of the Tiando royal family were here today. Even if he chose to leave the Royal Academy tomorrow, his family wouldn't dare reprimand him. With that thought securing his resolve, Yu Tianheng nodded at Cheng Xiao. Let's do this. Yu Tianheng's words, heavy with unspoken implications, gave Oslo, Yufeng, and the Shi brothers pause. They exchanged quick glances, fell silent for a few seconds, and then, one by one, each of them nodded in agreement. They weren't fools. If they couldn't read their captain now, they never would. Cheng Xiao, Yu Tianheng continued, curiosity lighting his tone. What do we do next? Cheng Xiao scratched the back of his neck, a faint blush rising to his cheeks. Well, for starters, we wait. Wait? Yu Tianheng raised an eyebrow. What exactly do you mean? Cheng Xiao sighed, trying to steady his nerves. His Royal Highness the Crown Prince has just finalized our agreement. We know who we're working with, but we don't yet know when or where everything will happen. All we can do is stand by until the venue and time are set. Yu Tianheng studied him for a moment, then nodded. Understood. We'll be ready as soon as we hear more. Everyone fell into companionable silence, each man turning his thoughts inward as they prepared to await the next move in a game that was only just beginning. Chapter 155. Learn to hit the mark. 1 month later, outside the gates of Tiandao City, the granite walls here rose a full 100 meters into the sky, unyielding, solid, and imposing. On the ramparts and below them, armored sentries patrolled in measured steps, spears in hand. Their helmed visages concealed their features, but the lethal tension emanating from their ranks left no doubt as to their readiness for conflict. "Stinky brat, you really know how to push my buttons," grumbled the old man in the dark green robe as he pressed another small notice onto the crowded bulletin board. His gnarled fingers flexed in exasperation. Next to him, Cheng Xiao was busy plastering a massive, freshly printed poster across half the board. The two of them had agreed to combine forces. Between the old man's connections and Cheng Xiao's flair for publicity, they intended to blanket the entire billboard with advertisements for the new academy. Cheng Xiao's family had founded. The oversized poster and a swarm of smaller flyers now obliterated every other announcement on the board. Stepping back to admire their handiwork, Cheng Xiao shot the old man a triumphant grin. "Come on, you volunteered to help me. No backing out now." The old man snorted, folding his arms. "Just don't blame me when the city guard chases us off for defacing public property." Cheng Xiao winked. "That's what you have me for, negotiating our way out of trouble. Now come on, let's see how many recruits we can stir up today." Together, they turned away from the gate, the fluttering posters behind them already drawing the curious gazes of passers-by. Tiandao City's newest academy was about to make its debut. A bold announcement recently appeared on the bulletin board at number 79 Busy Street in northern Tiandao City. Sincerely recruiting. The newly established 7-star Academy of Advanced Soul Masters is now hiring teachers, tutors, and logistics staff. Teachers must be at least Soul King level. Tutors must be at least Soul Emperor level. Logistics positions have no combat level requirement. All positions receive preferential treatment and benefits upon hiring. Note, although our academy is new, it already boasts the protection of a titled Douluo level powerhouse. Every staff member, teachers, tutors, and logistics alike, will be under the personal safeguard of a titled Douluo. The moment these words went up, a wave of excitement rippled through Tiandao City. Any soul master who secured a teaching or tutoring role at 7-star Academy would gain the rare and immensely valuable backing of a titled Douluo, one of the continent's top-tier fighters. Naturally, word spread like wildfire. High-level soul masters flocked to the Academy's gates, eager to submit their applications, while ambitious recruitment agents set out across the city to trumpet this extraordinary opportunity. The buzz of word-of-mouth spread fast, and soon, Tiandao City's main gate was thronged with excited chatter. Families and academies that had spent the morning plastering their notices on the public bulletin board now stared in dismay. A single, massive poster had appeared overnight, covering nearly every inch of space, and burying their own announcements beneath it. Having finished their own advertisement, Cheng Xiao and Douluo had parted at the gate. Douluo hurried back to the academy to resolve some pressing matters, while Cheng Xiao set off down the crowded street, browsing merchants' stalls and watching everyday life unfold. She'd only gone a short distance when a ripple of commotion drew her attention. A tight circle of townspeople had formed around two figures locked in an argument. Intrigued, Cheng Xiao edged closer until she could see them clearly. In the center stood a young woman gripping a long scorpion whip. The leather strands coiled and uncoiled like a living thing, and her free hand rested firmly on her hip. She leaned forward, eyes flashing. "Tyrone," she ground out through clenched teeth, "when will you ever admit you're beaten?" Facing her was a tall young man, about 1.8 meters, with broad shoulders and a solid athletic build. His chestnut-red hair was cut short and tousled, giving him an air of rugged determination. He stood his ground, fists curled at his sides, meeting the whip-wielder's glare with equal stubbornness. A hush fell over the crowd as everyone waited to see what would happen next. Tai Long's eyes gleamed as he stepped closer, his voice low and earnest. "Xiao Wu, just promise me. I swear I'll treat you right. Believe me." Xiao Wu's lip curled in contempt. "Why are you so shameless?" she snapped. "I've told you before, I don't like you, and I don't like Tang San either. Stop pestering me." A slow, ugly smile spread across Tai Long's face. "I thought you had feelings for the young master, and that was why you spurned me," he said, voice dripping with false sympathy. "But now I learn you don't, so there's nothing holding me back." Lust glittered in his eyes as he took another step, looming over her. "You're just begging for trouble." Xiao Wu's expression froze cold as she tapped into her spirit power. Instantly, 3 rings of brilliant pink light bloomed around her, circling her feet like molten crystals. Her whole body glowed, the air crackling with her aura. "If you're looking for a fight," she said icily, "you found one." Tai Long's grin faltered for only a heartbeat before he, too, unleashed his martial spirit. A pair of heavy, angular spirit rings materialized above his shoulders, humming with raw force. He lunged at Xiao Wu, intent on forcing her compliance. "In public, you stoop to this?" came a calm voice from behind him. Before Tai Long could react, a young man wreathed in black smoke solidified between them. The newcomer's dark eyes held Tai Long's advance at bay. Instantly, the tension snapped taut, and the two stood locked in a standoff, as if the entire world held its breath. A smoky black hand shot out of nowhere and clamped down on Tai Long's shoulder. The grip was like iron, yanking him off balance and driving him to his knees. Pain and humiliation twisted his face. In his mind, he'd told himself that, if only he were strong enough, the female soulmaster standing nearby would admire him, and Xiao Wu would finally see him in a new light. Instead, here he was, pinned and helpless. Through gritted teeth, he spat out a warning. "You'd do well to stay out of other people's affairs. I am Tai Long, young patriarch of the Power Clan. My grandfather is Titan, the 86th rank Soul Douluo." But the instant the words left his mouth, he realized how futile they sounded. The man holding him was leagues stronger, and every second his shoulder throbbed from that crushing grip. Worse, their struggle had been loud enough to alert the city's defense force. If Tai Long didn't find a way out, fast, he would soon have more than bruised pride to worry about. Tai Long ground his teeth as he strode forward, determined not to leave empty-handed, and even more determined to avoid his father's and grandfather's wrath when he reported back empty-handed. He squared his shoulders and let his family name roll off his tongue, hoping to cow the woman before him into submission. Cheng Xiao regarded him with a faint, amused smile. Then, without warning, she closed the distance and gripped his shoulders in a single iron-strong hand. Tai Long winced as her 5 fingers sank in, forcing him to gasp in pain. "Your grandfather's an 86th-level Soul Douluo," she said quietly, "but you're not." She gave his shoulders a sharp twist, and he bit back a cry. Tai Long's face blanched. He stared up at Cheng Xiao's calm, unblinking eyes, but no words came. With a soft sigh, she released him. "Now go, before the defense army shows up and hauls you in." "Humph." Tai Long snorted, rubbing his sore shoulders. "This isn't over. You'll regret this." He stormed off, leaving Cheng Xiao watching him go. She shook her head and let a small smile play at her lips. In all her encounters, this was the first time she'd ever seen someone so proud so easily put in his place. Even if he took her words to heart, she still couldn't touch him. Not his grandfather, not even his great-grandfather. At best, they'd simply be adding another name to the Shadow Legion's roster. Just as Cheng Xiao dismissed the thought, a pair of slender, jade-toned arms slid around his waist and hauled him into a tight embrace. His spine stiffened, and a soft, almost tearful voice whispered at his ear, You. Why did you leave just now? Didn't you promise you'd be with me as soon as you got to Tiando City? Cheng Xiao leaned back and looked down at Xiao Wu nestled against his chest. He couldn't help smiling. Well, I'm here now, aren't I? You're the one who's late. Xiao Wu lifted her pretty face in a petulant pout. I formally protest your tardiness. Cheng Xiao cleared his throat and awkwardly ruffled her hair. Ahem. So, how about we go get some lunch? Looks like I haven't eaten either, Cheng Xiao admitted, pushing the straps of her backpack to one side. Before she could finish, Xiao Wu pressed her forehead against Cheng Xiao's chest and wound her arms around her waist. In a soft, urgent voice she murmured, "Please don't let go so soon. Once we've eaten, you'll leave again, and I just want to hold you a bit longer." Cheng Xiao hesitated, then gently rested a hand on Xiao Wu's back, letting her stay in the embrace for a few precious moments. I glanced up from the glowing computer screen in front of me. I'd called the repair shop today, but my phone still isn't working. So here I am again, trapped in this dingy internet cafe. I've never hated these places more. Chapter 156, When Old and Young Battle Together. The afternoon sun slanted across Tiando City's streets, bathing everything in a warm, golden glow. Wispy clouds blushed shades of orange and pink, and a gentle breeze carried a refreshing coolness. After lunch, Cheng Xiao and Xiao Wu wandered along the sidewalk side by side. With Cheng Xiao by her side, Xiao Wu's excitement was palpable. She darted from shop window to shop window, eager to show him every delightful find. Cheng Xiao didn't resist. He simply smiled and let her tug him along. Cheng Xiao, thank you for spending the day with me, Xiao Wu said, her hands clasped behind her back as she grinned up at him. He shook his head with a gentle smile. You don't need to thank me. I promised to show you around Tiando City. I know you're busy, she admitted, but I can't help wanting to spend more time with you. Xiao Wu paused, letting her big red eyes search Cheng Xiao's face. Then, with a sudden, delighted laugh, her cheeks flushed pink. On tiptoe, she leaned in and pressed a soft kiss to his lips, leaving him pleasantly surprised. A soft warmth blossomed on Cheng Xiao's cheek. Before he could even react, Xiao Wu grinned, stepped back, clasped her hands behind her, blinked and chuckled. Come on, take a walk with me. And that little kiss was my reward for helping me out. Cheng Xiao wiped his face, still in a daze. That was fast. Mind if I? Nope. Xiao Wu gave him a teasing smile and turned her head away. Friends don't get greedy. He shrugged and moved to fall in step beside her, but at that moment a booming voice cut through the air. Who are you? How dare you lay a hand on my grandson? A middle-aged man emerged from the alley's shadows. At sight of him, Xiao Wu's expression hardened. These gorillas really have no boundaries, she spat. Cheng Xiao frowned. Xiao Wu, you know him? That's Tai Nuo, Tai Long's father, she said, planting her hand on her hip and nodding toward the man striding toward them. Tai Nuo. Cheng Xiao froze for a split second, then recognition flared in his eyes. This was the old man who'd come looking for trouble after his son had been beaten. Tai Nuo's face twisted with anger as he strode forward. You little brat, he growled. If it hadn't been for young Master Tong San stepping in for you, do you think you'd still be standing here now? Xiao Wu bristled at the insult, snapping back without thinking. Are all of you Li clan folk this mindless? No wonder a few of you have no brains at all. Tai Nuo's eyes narrowed. Watch your tongue, girl, he warned, his gaze flicking from Xiao Wu to Cheng Xiao. The youth before him gave off an odd sensation. He seemed different from the others, as if hiding a trick. But Tai Nuo was nothing if not straightforward. With a grunt of impatience, he reached out and seized Cheng Xiao's arm, intent on roughing him up to avenge his son. Cheng Xiao winced at the grip, but met the elder's glare steadily. Whatever game Tai Nuo suspected, he wasn't going to back down now. The tension crackled between them like a taut bowstring, each waiting for the other to make the first move. Tai Nuo's hand shot forward, aiming straight for Cheng Xiao's chest. Xiao Wu, standing nervously at Cheng Xiao's side, tensed. She'd only just begun to master her spiritual power, and she couldn't react in time. But Cheng Xiao remained perfectly still. In one fluid motion, he seized Xiao Wu's wrist. Then, before either of them could fully register what was happening, he snapped his fingers. A curling wisp of inky smoke spiraled up from his shadow, coalescing into a striking figure. Tall and lithe, The newcomer had long, ice-blue hair that shimmered against pale skin and eyes the color of smoldering embers. Without a word, he inclined his head once toward Cheng Xiao. "Nash!" Cheng Xiao murmured, voice low. "Be gentle. Don't kill him." The giant dragon Nash nodded, then advanced with surprising grace. In the next instant, he extended a massive palm and struck Tainuo square in the chest. The blow seemed almost weightless as it cut through the air, but on impact it crushed ribs as though they were brittle twigs. Tainuo's eyes widened in shock. Pain exploded through his torso, and when he tried to pull his arm back, it hung useless at his side. His face drained of color as he stared at Nash in horror. "Who are you?" Tainuo gasped. "What kind of power is this?" He couldn't fathom how this stranger could outmatch even his father's strength. Could this man be the personal guardian of that young titled Douluo? The thought sent a cold sweat trickling down Tainuo's back. Before he could react, the giant dragon Nash slammed him in the chest with a single palm strike. Tainuo flew backward like a cannonball, crashing into the alley wall. Nash withdrew his massive hand and let his lips part in a cruel, frozen grin. From deep within his throat came a voice as chilling as a winter wind. "If you crave death, I'll gladly send you off." Tainuo tried to plead, but the force of that blow had shattered every rib. He couldn't even gasp out a word. Summoning all his strength, he staggered to one knee and rasped, "Who are you? How dare you harm my son?" At that moment, a figure taller and broader than any mountain rose beside Nash. The dragon glanced over with amused disdain. "Oh, another ant?" The newcomer was Titan, better known as Hercules, his soul power soaring at level 86 with a singular focus on raw strength. Even among the elite titled Douluo, few could hope to match him. In terms of raw power alone, Titan stood shoulder to shoulder with a titled Douluo well above level 90. Now, being mocked so casually, his pride flared into rage. He glared down at his fallen son and slammed his heel into the ground. In an instant, 8 glowing soul rings burst from the earth and hovered around him like a halo of menace. "I've walked this world for centuries," he bellowed, voice shaking the very air, "and you're the first to call me an ant. Have you thought about how you'll die?" His fists crackled as a tidal wave of soul power surged outward, intent on crushing the colossal dragon Nash. "Your Majesty, be careful," Nash rumbled to Cheng Xiao, then spun back to face Titan. From the dragon's massive form, 2 brilliant auras began to coalesce, one a shimmering ice blue, the other a roiling crimson. These twin dragon souls snaked around Nash in a living coil of power. The moment they took shape, Titan's onslaught of pressure evaporated as if struck by a gust of wind. Titan's features twisted in disbelief. A dragon martial soul was one thing, but a top-tier double-head dragon? He had never anticipated such a force. Emotion warred in his eyes, shock, fury, and the dawning realization that he had underestimated his opponent. Chapter 157, Shadow Soldiers, Titans. Titan's eyes widened in terror as he beheld the 2 dragon souls radiating overwhelming power. From the depths of his spirit, a suffocating pressure surged up, slamming into his mind like an invisible lance. Vertigo hit him in an instant, and with a shattering noise, his bonded martial spirit collapsed. Titan staggered backward several steps, reeling. How humiliating, he thought. I'm a level 86 spirit fighter, yet my martial spirit breaks at the first strike? Who is this man? No sooner had the pressure lifted than a new, even more crushing force bore down on him. With a single, deliberate wave of his palm, the colossal form of Dragon Marcus Nash unleashed an aura that pinned Titan to the ground. The elite warrior, whose strength rivaled any titled battler, was driven to his knees, utterly immobilized. Nash's cold eyes bore into him. "I told you already, you're nothing but an ant beneath my boot." Titan glared defiantly, though his voice shook. "Who are you? I've lived in Tiando City my entire life, and I've never even heard of you." Titan lay pinned to the ground, unable to move, but his pride burned as fiercely as ever. He lifted his chin stubbornly, daring the massive dragon Nash to do his worst. Cheng Xiao, standing over the kneeling giant, frowned coldly. "It doesn't matter who you are," he said. "What matters is how you plan to compensate us." "Compensate you?" Titan spat. "You've laid hands on my son and my grandson, then you have the nerve to demand recompense? In your dreams." Cheng Xiao's lips curled in a mocking smile. "Very well, if you refuse to pay willingly, then I'll settle this myself." His eyes narrowed to slits of steel, and black mist swirled around his hand, forming a long, shadowy blade. With a wordless snarl, Cheng Xiao drove the blade straight at Titan's forehead. "Prepare to meet your end." Titan roared in fury. 8 soul rings flared to life around him, the 7th and 8th blazing more brightly than the rest. Summoning every last ounce of strength, he lashed out to break free of Cheng Xiao's assault. "Don't you dare move!" Nash the dragon thundered, and with a powerful sweep of his hind leg, he sent Titan crashing back into the earth. With a thunderous crack, Titan's mountain-sized body flew through the air and slammed into the earth, gouging a massive crater. Dust and debris billowed upward as he lay motionless at the bottom. Cheng Xiao advanced, his sword already gleaming. Just as he prepared to deliver the killing blow, Xiao Wu darted in front of him, placing a hand on his blade. "Don't kill him," she urged, eyes wide. Cheng Xiao hesitated, brow furrowed. He'd intended to slay Titan and convert him into a shadow soldier. His army hadn't grown in ages. Why the sudden mercy? "If you cut him down now, the fallout will be disastrous," Xiao Wu replied. "Rumor has it Tang San tasked Titan with monitoring you. If you kill him, who knows what reprisals might follow." Before Cheng Xiao could respond, a booming roar echoed from the pit. They both whirled to see the colossal dragon Nash emerge victorious, lifting Titan in one massive claw as if he were nothing more than a rag doll. Xiao Wu stared in disbelief. Never mind, I guess." Nash rumbled, smoke curling from his nostrils. "He's still breathing, Your Majesty. His hide's tough. Shall I roast him with dragonfire?" Cheng Xiao's eyes gleamed. "Proceed." With a flick of his wrist, he nodded, and Nash inhaled deeply, ready to unleash his fiery wrath. Cheng Xiao waved a dismissive hand. "Burn it away. Even if it dies and comes back, it makes no difference." He understood Xiao Wu's anxiety, but he wasn't the same as before. He'd witnessed the true strength of Nash, the colossal dragon. Nash was the only shadow soldier impervious to Cheng Xiao's usual control, and that freedom let him unleash his full, terrifying power. In the next instant, Xiao Wu's eyes widened in shock. Flames coalesced in Nash's gaping maw, each ember crackling with raw heat. Then, with a thunderous roar, the dragon expelled a sea-ring torrent of fire. The towering Titan, an immovable mountain of flesh and steel, was engulfed in the blaze. Its form blackened, its roar choked off, and at last it collapsed, utterly destroyed. Nash nonchalantly flicked the charred remains aside, then turned and bowed his great head to Cheng Xiao. "Your Majesty, it's done." Cheng Xiao gave a curt nod. "That's enough for today. You should go back, Xiao Wu. Nash and I will handle his body. After all, he was a soul Douluo, and a death like this will draw unwanted attention." Xiao Wu opened her mouth, clearly about to protest, but the cold edge in Cheng Xiao's eyes froze her words. She bit her lip, then vanished down the street in a blur. Cheng Xiao watched her go, drew in a steadying breath, and turned toward Titan's lifeless form. He stood silent for 2 heartbeats before speaking in a low, commanding voice. "Rise." At once a swirl of inky smoke snaked around the corpse, and Cheng Xiao felt his own reservoir of shadow power drain rapidly. A gauntleted hand emerged from Titan's chest, black mist streaming from every joint. Within moments, the shadow-forged Titan stood fully erect before him, clad in dark armor, his eyes twin voids that seemed to weep silent laments. Titan dropped to one knee, head bowed in perfect reverence. "Sire," he intoned, voice echoing with hollow resonance, "Titan awaits your command." Cheng Xiao studied the power still humming around Titan and nodded in satisfaction. "Not bad, roughly the level of a general," she observed. Then she gestured to the motionless form of Taino on the ground. "I've chosen not to make your son one of my soldiers, for now. But that could change. Consider this your chance to bid him farewell." Without another word, Cheng Xiao turned and walked away with Nash at her side, never glancing back. Titan, reduced to a shadowy soldier, watched their silhouettes recede. He stared at his inky hands, a bitter smile creeping across his face as he shook his head. From within the hollow shell of his former body, he drew out a small token stamped with the word power. He regarded it for a moment, then slid it into his soul compass and tucked the device into Taino's breast pocket. Drawing a steadying breath, Titan forced a gentle smile and whispered to the empty air, "Perhaps serving the king is more glorious than serving my old master." With those words, his form dissolved into tendrils of black smoke that drifted away on the breeze. Moments later, Taino stirred on the ground. His eyelids fluttered open, and he blinked up at the sky, awakening to a world forever changed. Tainuo struggled to his feet, heart pounding, only to freeze in horror at the sight before him. His father lay motionless, his chest ripped open, leaving a gaping, bloody hole where his heart should have been. No, the word tore from Tainuo's throat as hot tears blurred his vision. Overcome by grief and rage, he fell to his knees, clutching at the ground before everything went black. Hours later, long after dusk, Cheng Xiao returned to Seven Stars Academy. Once the grand hall of a venerable sect, the campus had fallen into ruin, until Shui Qinghe took it upon himself to restore its glory. Cheng Xiao modeled the new teaching building on the old temple's design, 4 stately floors capped by what now served as the dean's office. Neat rows of student dormitories rose just behind it, but the first thing anyone noticed was the main gate, where 8 gilded characters proclaimed the school's name in bold relief: 7 Stars Advanced Soul Master Academy. Under the soft glow of lanterns, the refurbished walls stood proud, a promise of the power and knowledge waiting within. Chapter 158. Actor Ju Douluo. The forest at sunset blazed with shades of ice and fire. Douluo stood at the mouth of the cavern, watching the sun dip toward the horizon. His ice and fire eyes glowed emerald, and he let out a long, slow breath that fogged the cool air. It was the first time in a month that this titled Douluo had felt real fatigue. Founding an academy had turned out to be far more troublesome than he ever imagined. Without Cheng Xiao's news that Shui Qinghe was joining him, he might well have thrown in the towel long ago. What had driven him, of all proud Douluo, to shoulder such a headache? As someone notorious for his impatience, the constant wrangling over logistics, recruitment, and curriculum had nearly broken him. Only the royal family's backing had granted him a temporary reprieve, allowing him to withdraw here to the sanctuary of his ice and fire eyes and catch his breath. A sudden rustle in the undergrowth snapped him from his thoughts. 2 figures burst from the trees, sprinting toward the cavern entrance. Douluo's eyes narrowed in surprise. "Zhuhe Guan and Old Ghost? What on earth are they doing here?" he murmured. His elite senses flared. He could recognize their auras anywhere. For a heartbeat, he hesitated, gauging their intent. Then, steeling himself, he strode out of the cave to meet them head-on. Douluo remained on guard, uncertain of why the 2 titled Douluo had come. In a single fluid motion, he leapt upward, dissolving into a swirl of emerald mist as he pursued them. Moments later, he reformed above Sunset Forest, hovering effortlessly in midair. Though his martial soul lacked the gift of flight, the immense power of a titled Douluo held him aloft. "Titled Douluo of Zhuhua Pass, Old Ghost. Lost your way?" he called, his voice drifting on the breeze. "You've wandered into my territory, looking for a quick death?" He still hadn't dared to ask the true purpose of their visit. He didn't yet know that his icy rift with Ghost Douluo was beginning to thaw. At the sound of that familiar taunt, Ghost Douluo's expression shifted, and he tilted his head to meet Douluo's challenging gaze. Behind him, Ju Douluo's eyes flickered with concern, a silent reminder of unspoken ties and changing loyalties. Douluo immediately sensed the faintest shift in Spirit Douluo Yuguan's posture, yet he remained perfectly still, hands clasped behind his back. A cold, sinister green light danced in his eyes as he fixed his gaze on the unseen Ghost Douluo. A palpable chill radiated from him, as though the very air had solidified. Yuguan met his stare without flinching, then cleared his throat. Before the Ghost Douluo at his side could speak, he said, "Old Poison, His Holiness the Pope has asked Old Ghost and me to invite you to Wuhan City. If you refuse, we'll be forced to use stronger persuasion." Douluo snorted with contempt. "Spirit Hall, you and the Wuhan Palace must think very highly of yourselves. If you want me to show up in Wuhan City, at least give me a good reason." He weighed his options, noting, as he did, that the Wuhan Palace must already know he'd opened an academy of his own. Given the Pope's notoriously domineering nature, he was certain she'd never tolerate an independent power growing unchecked. He tilted his head, meeting Yuguan's unblinking eyes. "Old Poison, you and I both bled our way to the titled Douluo realm. We've shared every hardship, and you're well aware of the friendship that binds us. That's not something you simply discard. Take my advice. Don't go looking for trouble," Ju Douluo said softly, her words carrying a subtle, almost teasing undertone. Ghost Douluo's expression hardened. Juhuaguan, what nonsense are you spouting now? If he refuses to cooperate, we'll just have to resort to other methods. Ju Douluo hesitated, her voice strained. Old ghost, don't underestimate this so-called poisonous creature. He's a titled Douluo in his own right. Even with my near-indestructible golden body, my poison resistance isn't as strong as you think. Ghost Douluo snorted in contempt. You're a level 96 titled Douluo now, and you're afraid of someone at level 91? Are you serious? Before Douluo could respond, Dugubo's handsome features broke into a confident smile. He stepped forward and spoke in a clear, ringing tone. I'm actually a level 93 titled Douluo. You're only level 91, and so is your entire family. Ghost Douluo's face darkened. He glared at Douluo, fists clenching at his sides. A cruel sneer curled his lips. Poisonous creature, he hissed. There won't be a snowstar for you this time. Help has arrived. Prince Juhuaguan, Ghost Douluo called out. Let's strike together. Ju Douluo glanced at his companion and nodded. Then, voice ringing clear, he announced, Breath Barrier, Soul Skill 3. At his words, the fifth soul ring on his wrist flared to life, and in his right palm a golden blossom unfurled. From its stamen poured a warm, glowing current that expanded outward, forming a translucent dome around the three of them. Inside that sphere, even the slightest breeze stilled into silence. Across the chamber, Dugubo's smirk faltered. He gritted his teeth and snarled, channeling his own power. A noxious green fog erupted from his body, venomous vapors spiraling into the barrier. The mist shrouded Ju Douluo and Ghost Douluo, blurring their vision and searing the air with its toxic stench. Ghost Douluo's eyes darted about, ready to launch a counterattack, but Ju Douluo abruptly sagged, as if overcome by the poison. Seizing the moment, he stumbled toward the old ghost, voice weak and pained. Old ghost, the poison, it's stronger than before, he gasped, collapsing at Ghost Douluo's feet. Concern and alarm flashed across Ghost Douluo's features, exactly the reaction Ju Douluo had hoped to provoke. Ghost Douluo's vision blurred in the creeping poisonous mist. He rubbed his temples. Why does my head feel so fuzzy? Ju Douluo's concerned voice drifted through the haze. What's happening? The fog swallowed sound and sight alike, leaving Ghost Douluo disoriented and unable to pinpoint his friend's location. If the air had been clear, he would have seen Chrysanthemum Douluo, Yueguan, covering her mouth to stifle a laugh. Suddenly, Dugubo materialized at Yueguan's side. Chrysanthemum Guan, what's going on? He whispered urgently. Yueguan cast a quick glance toward the stumbling Ghost Douluo, then leaned in close. In a muted voice, only Dugubo could hear, she explained, We were too noisy. The Pope has already grown suspicious. Give me the poison pill you prepared. I'll take it right away and pretend I've been poisoned. That way, he'll chase me instead of you. Dugubo's expression tightened. Are you sure? This batch is far stronger than the last. We can't afford to hesitate, Yueguan insisted. If we delay, that old ghost will see through our ruse. With no time to lose, Dugubo produced the vial from his robes and handed it to Yueguan. As the distant figure of the Pope loomed nearer through the mist, she steeled herself for the daring deception that would buy them the only chance they had to escape. Very well, I'll give you the antidote too, so you don't end up fatally poisoned. Dugubo inclined his head, then drew 2 small pills from the folds of his robe. One crimson, the other green. He pressed them into Ju Douluo Yueguan's hand. Listen carefully, he said. The red pill is poison. The green is the antidote. Don't confuse them. Ju Douluo Yueguan gave a dismissive wave. You may go, he sneered. Then, despite the queasy look in his eyes, he snatched the red pill between thumb and forefinger. With a soft grimace, he gulped it down and collapsed to the ground in a heap. Dugubo allowed himself a single cold smile. Ju Douluo Yueguan, die! With that final curse, he condensed his spirit into a silver streak and shot away from the heart of Sunset Forest, leaving nothing but rustling leaves in his wake. Chapter 159, Shadow Legion in Concert. The moment Ghost Douluo heard Dugubo's shout, Chrysanthemum pass, he knew Ju Douluo's life was in imminent danger. Without a second's hesitation, he unleashed his 9th spirit ring. His body trembled as a swirl of inky air erupted around him, sweeping away the poisonous mist that had choked the area. As the fog cleared, Ghost Douluo's eyes fell on Ju Douluo, sprawled on the ground. His eyes rolled back, muscles convulsed, and froth bubbled at the corners of his lips. Ghost Douluo propelled himself forward with blinding speed, vanishing from his spot in an instant as he raced to his friend's side. Douluo's face was deathly pale. The foam at his mouth was a cruel testament to the venom coursing through his veins. Seeing his old comrade so grievously harmed, Ghost Douluo's hands shook uncontrollably. He wrestled with guilt. He had held back earlier because, just before the battle, Douluo had patted his chest in reassurance. "Once you unleash your soul power," he'd said, "Douluo won't get away." Yet here they were. Douluo had slipped free, and worse, he'd managed to poison Douluo. How had everything gone so disastrously wrong? Ghost Douluo's face drained of color, veins throbbing at his temples as he clenched his fists so tightly his knuckles went white. "Old poison, you're heartless," he spat. If Douluo were here, Ghost Douluo would gladly go toe-to-toe with him, no matter the consequences. He and Douluo had been brothers in arms for decades, closest of comrades, and he couldn't forgive anyone who harmed his friend. Gently, he gathered Douluo's trembling form into his arms. The other man's body convulsed with poisoned spasms, and Ghost Douluo felt panic surge through him. "Hold on, Juhuaguan," he murmured fiercely, using his friend's childhood honorific. "I promise I'll get you back to Wuhun Palace and find a cure." With that, he leapt upward, vaulting through the canopy of the sunset forest and streaking eastward beneath the fading dusk. By the time he touched down, they'd reached the outskirts of Tiando City, at the foot of the mountain behind Seven Stars College. Here, a serene lake lay hidden among pines and cedars, its surface scarcely 50 meters across. A narrow, 3-meter-wide stream slipped through a mossy gorge, feeding the pool with living water before winding back into the hills. Next to the lake stood an elegant octagonal pavilion, its golden-glazed roof tiles catching the late afternoon sun and scattering light like 1,000 sparks. Vermilion pillars framed the structure in rich contrast, making it glow against the forest's emerald shadows. Ghost Douluo set Douluo gently on the cool stone floor, brushing aside a lock of his friend's dark hair as he prepared to search for help, or a healer, within the quiet sanctuary of this hidden retreat. A low wooden fence encircled the pavilion, and inside it a riot of flowers bloomed, each one bright and beautiful in its own way. In the far corner, a young man dressed entirely in black sat motionless on a stone bench, his dark eyes fixed on the blossoms before him. At his side, 2 shadow soldiers knelt, their black armor glinting in the soft light. Both men shot furtive glances at their king, an expression of rare curiosity flickering across their faces. "What's wrong with His Majesty?" Shadow Soldier Fang finally whispered. "I don't know," replied Shadow Soldier Gui Bao. "I've never seen him this withdrawn. Did some fool insult the king?" Around them, the other shadow soldiers exchanged puzzled looks. No one dared speak, but the question hung heavy in the spring air. Half kneeling before the young king, head bowed but eyes calm, was the great dragon Nash. He lifted his gaze to Cheng Xiao, concern evident in his steady stare. "Your Majesty." Before he could finish, Cheng Xiao, who had sat in silence until now, turned to face him. His dark eyes burned with a power that seemed to chill the very air, a reflection of the Death King's authority itself. Nash's jaw slackened, words dying on his tongue. "Tell me, Nash," Cheng Xiao said at last, his voice quiet but unyielding. "Why is your power not bound by death's dominion?" Cheng Xiao's expression remained unreadable as he regarded the prostrate dragon. "Tell me," he said quietly, "is your power drawn from your time under the Dragon Emperor, or from the 2 dragon souls you absorbed?" Dragon Nash bowed his head to the ground. "Your Majesty, I beg your forgiveness for my offense. When I served as commander of the Light Dragon Legion, the Dragon Emperor granted us a fraction of his might, much like the runestone I entrusted to you. It carries both his power and the strength I once possessed in life." He drew a shaky breath. "The 2 dragon souls you mentioned have further enhanced me, restoring my abilities to their full former glory. That is why your current power cannot suppress me, and I remain untouched by your influence." Cheng Xiao studied him for a long moment, then asked, voice even, "So you're saying the residual energy of those 2 dragon souls places you beyond the limits of my magic?" Nash dared not raise his head. "Yes, your Majesty. And, as one of your shadow soldiers, I can sense the stirrings of doubt in your heart." He paused, mustering courage. "If it please you, sire, would you share your concerns with me? Maybe doing it will ease the turmoil in your heart." Cheng Xiao shook his head and spoke with quiet resolve. "Nash, do you really think an ordinary man, someone who's never even slaughtered a chicken, would suddenly crave killing just because he's gained power?" He let the question hang for a moment. "Tell me, when I asked you to slay the Titan yesterday, what ran through your mind?" Nash the dragon lifted his great head, surprise softening his scaly features. He had not expected such a question from his king. Then it dawned on him. This Cheng Xiao was not the second-generation Shadow King whose name once struck terror into the Dragon Emperor. He wasn't yet the full-power Shadow King of legend. He was merely a young sovereign still learning to wield that terrible gift. Unlike Cheng Xiaoyu, bound by some cruel system that demanded death if she refused to kill, Cheng Xiao answered only to his own conscience. Since awakening the Shadow King's might, he had acted on what he believed was right. Yet now he sensed something new and unsettling creeping over him, an indifference as cold and distant as the grave. He regarded death with a chilling indifference, not to individuals but to life itself. To him, slaying a soul master felt no different than dispatching a wild soul beast. And yet, with every life he took, a new worry gnawed at him. He knew, with grim certainty, that his strength did not spring from his own will, but from the Shadow King's power. What if that power were ever torn from him? Would he, like the Titan he'd just slain, be left utterly helpless? What if his opponent proved too strong and he could do nothing but plead for his life? Cheng Xiaoyu had family and friends to protect, anchors that kept him from falling entirely into the abyss of power. But were those bonds genuine? He realized his so-called friendships had been forged through advantage, born of his uncanny foresight into the plot, not through true understanding or heartfelt connection. He'd never allowed them to grow naturally. He'd simply guided events to keep his allies close. "Your Majesty," came a low, resonant voice that cut through his spiraling thoughts. The great dragon Nash lifted his scaled head, eyes burning with earnest intensity as they met Cheng Xiaoyu's. "Though you bear the crown and command immeasurable might, you remain but a youth, still in the midst of growth." Cheng Xiaoyu stiffened beneath the dragon's gaze. Nash's words held a sober reminder. Without genuine roots, even the greatest power could slip through his fingers. And if that happened, he would have nothing. No strength, no friends, no hope of protection. In that moment of truth, Cheng Xiaoyu understood that facing his deepest fears and forging real bonds would be the greatest challenge of all. Dragon Nash bowed low before him. "Your Majesty, we Shadow Soldiers are deeply honored to walk by your side and witness your rise." He paused, eyes earnest. "Sometimes I wonder, if you ever succumb to the Dragon Emperor's wrath, would we still follow you so faithfully? But then I remind myself that our loyalty isn't born from fear of the crown. It's because of you, Cheng Xiao. Your integrity, your vision, the way you bear responsibility, these are the reasons we believe you will become a great king." As Nash finished speaking, every Shadow Soldier concealed in the dim alcoves suddenly emerged and knelt in unison around Cheng Xiao. Their voices rang out like one. "Your Majesty, we swear to follow you. Please do not face this path alone." Cheng Xiao felt a surge of emotion. Torchlight flickered across polished armor and stalwart faces. He met each soldier's gaze, sensing their unwavering faith. He drew a steadying breath, the weight in his chest lifting slightly. Words failed him, but their loyalty spoke louder than any promise. He was not alone. Behind him stood countless soldiers, ready to bear the trials that lay ahead. Chapter 160, The Arrival of the Seven Treasured Glazed Sect. A flash of green light streaked across the sky, and a figure dropped heavily outside the pavilion. Cheng Xiao, still reeling from his recent recovery, barely had time to brace himself before the man stood up, dusting off his robes. Douluo's expression was unusually grave as he strode forward with arms folded behind his back. "Old poison? What are you doing here?" Cheng Xiao blinked in surprise. "You told me you were worn out and heading back to Sunset Forest to rest." Douluo forced a tight smile and waved a dismissive hand. "Rest? There's no time for that. Our strength has surged so rapidly that Wuhun Palace has set its sights on us. I can't afford to slow down." Cheng Xiao frowned. Has someone from Wuhun Palace come after you? It's worse than that. Douluo shook his head, the tension in his eyes deepening. Last night, they sent a clandestine strike force against our disciples. 5 of our best were ambushed in the hills south of the Blood Moon Pass. Only 2 returned, badly wounded. He paused, scanning Cheng Xiao's face for a reaction. They demanded we hand over the Heartfire Jade. When we refused, they threatened all of us. Cheng Xiao's heart pounded. What? They actually attacked your men? Douluo bowed his head. And they'll come again, soon. Cheng Xiao clenched his fists. This was no mere rivalry. It was an all-out declaration of war. As Douluo's words settled over him, he realized that the 7-treasure glazed sect was about to face its greatest threat yet. Cheng Xiao's eyes went wide. He actually took your poison? Then, you didn't kill him? Douluo chuckled and ruffled her hair. Kill him? Are you serious? Of course I thought it through. Yes, Douluo swallowed the poisoned pill, but I slipped him an antidote at the same time. And even without that, his soul power is so high he wouldn't drop dead immediately. Cheng Xiao let out a low whistle. Not bad. I didn't see that coming. Glad you think so, Douluo said with a sly grin. But here's the real twist. I never expected Bibidong to sick both Juhua Douluo and Old Ghost on me. If you hadn't helped patch things up between Juhua and me, I'd be limping back to the Spirit Academy in pieces right now. Cheng Xiao nodded. You're right. On paper, 2 level 95 titled Douluo chasing a level 91? It's a tall order. But with Juhua Douluo's temper, he'd probably let you slip through his fingers once the hunt slowed down. They exchanged a knowing look. In the tangled politics of the Spirit Hall, a sprinkle of poison was nothing without the perfect plan to undo it, and Douluo had clearly thought everything through. After all, only a handful of fighters ever achieve the rank of titled Douluo, and Wuhun Palace moves faster than most. Barely a week after founding our academy, they'd already dispatched hunters to seize Douluo. If he ever reached full strength and squared off against Wuhun Palace, knowing Bibidong's ruthless streak, there'd be no avoiding a catastrophe. Grandpa, what are you doing here? Duguyan and Ye Lingling stepped forward just then, exchanged curious glances with Douluo, and then turned to Cheng Xiao. Cheng Xiao, the prince has arrived at the academy. From the size of his retinue, it's clear he's here to see you. Me? Cheng Xiao pointed at himself in surprise. Douluo leaned in, his voice dropping to a near whisper. Cheng Xiao, Prince Shui Qinghe isn't as straightforward as he seems. There's nothing wrong with his reaching out to us, but never forget to look beyond appearances. Cheng Xiao met Douluo's eyes steadily. Prince Shui Qinghe saved my life. Be very careful when dealing with Shui Qinghe, Douluo warned. Cheng Xiao nodded, then beckoned to Douluyan, who wisely slipped away. As she vanished, Yilingling's eyes remained fixed on Cheng Xiao until Douluyan gently tugged her arm, urging her along. The black gauze veil hid Yilingling's face, rendering her expression unreadable. Cheng Xiao turned back to Douluo with a playful smirk. All right, you old, venomous sprite, let's go meet His Royal Highness the Crown Prince. After all, it's for your benefit. Try to look grateful. Douluo inclined his head in agreement, and together they strolled down a verdant path to the Academy's conference room. 2 instructors stood at the door. Upon seeing Cheng Xiao and Douluo approaching, they bowed respectfully. Dean, His Royal Highness awaits inside. We'll take our leave now. With another courteous bow, the instructors stepped aside and departed, leaving the doors open for Cheng Xiao and Douluo to enter. Cheng Xiao and Douluo pushed open the conference room door and came to an abrupt halt. On the sofa sat Shui Qinghe, carefully pouring tea into a fine porcelain cup held by the man beside him, the Crown Prince himself. The prince's face was as perfectly chiseled as a jade sculpture. A straight, noble nose, firm, square jaw, soft, attentive eyes. His white robes were immaculate, and though he appeared no older than 40, there was a poised, easy confidence about him that marked him as royalty. Cheng Xiao's gaze drifted from the Crown Prince to the other 2 guests. A slender girl with bright, curious eyes, and beside her an elderly man whose lined face spoke of many battles fought and won. An involuntary frown creased Cheng Xiao's brow. He never expected to meet Ning Fengji, his daughter Ning Rongrong, and the famed sword do master Luo Chenxin, all in one place. Shui Qinghe rose, setting down the teapot. Brother Cheng Xiao, welcome. Cheng Xiao bowed deeply, cupping his hands before him. Your Highness. Still, his eyes lingered on the trio. Noticing his surprise, Shui Qinghe smiled and waved a hand toward the others. Let me introduce you properly. This is Grandmaster Ning Fengji and his daughter, Miss Ning Rongrong, and beside them stands Sword Douluo Chenshin. Cheng Xiao inclined his head in greeting to each of them, his mind racing with questions about this unexpected and undeniably significant gathering. I stood alongside my teacher, Ning Fengji, the venerable master of the Seven Treasures Glazed Tile sect, while at his other side loomed Liu Li, our Stoic sect protector. Next to them was the legendary Sword Douluo Chen Xin, celebrated across the mainland as the #1 offensive Douluo, his soul power having already attained level 96. Beside me, quietly observing, was my junior sister Ning Rongrong, the cherished daughter of sect leader Ning. I was the first to break the silence. Hello again, sect leader Ning, I said, inclining my head politely toward Shui Qinghe. Cheng Xiao returned the greeting with a warm smile, then shifted her nod toward Master Ning. It's been too long, little friend Cheng Xiao, he replied, rising to his feet. His gaze then fell on Douluo Bo, also known as Douluo Mian, who stood just a step away. Douluo Bo's expression turned frosty. Sect Master Ning, he began, what brings you here? I highly doubt the Seven Treasures Glazed Tile sect has any real interest in our newly established academy. At his words, Sword Douluo Chen Xin's eyes flickered open like a razor blade being unsheathed. His cold glare pinned Douluo Bo in place, and the protector's tone noticeably softened under that piercing scrutiny. Ning Fengji offered Sword Douluo a warm smile. Uncle Jian? He greeted him, then turned to Cheng Xiao. Young friend, I heard your soul power has already broken past level 40. Such talent at your age, no wonder Qinghe speaks so highly of you. Seeing you today, I'm truly impressed. Cheng Xiao returned the smile modestly. Sect Master Ning, you flatter me. It was nothing more than a lucky break. Please, let's sit and talk. By all means. Ning Fengji nodded, and the two men took their seats at a lacquered wood table. A servant promptly appeared with a steaming teapot, filled their cups with fragrant tea, and then withdrew silently. Ning Fengji wasted no time. Qinghe mentioned that you and Douluo Mianxia plan to open a high-level Soul Master Academy together. My daughter has been pestering me to come see it, so here we are. He cast a noe and glanced at his daughter, Ning Rongrong, whose eyes shone with anticipation. He rose without a moment's hesitation, extended his hand to Cheng Xiao with a graceful smile, and said, Hello, Cheng Xiao. Cheng Xiao stood as well and took the offered hand. No, not that one. It was Ning Rongrong's. He lightly shook her palm and returned her smile. Hello, and thank you for saving me the other night. Rongrong waved off his thanks. It was nothing, just a bit of luck. At that, Ning Fengji's eyes went wide. What? Rongrong, Cheng Xiao saved you. When did this happen? His question drew the attention of everyone in the hall. Shui Qinghe, Douluo Bo, Sword Douluo, and the others all turned toward Cheng Xiao, faces etched with surprise and curiosity. Clearing his throat, Cheng Xiao offered a brief explanation. A few nights ago, Miss Ning was being followed through Tiando City after dark. I happened to pass by and saw what was happening, so I stepped in. As for the golden card, sect leader Ning originally entrusted it to me, but now that its purpose is fulfilled, it should be returned to its true form. He paused, recalling the strange chain of events. He had truly been just a passerby that night, yet his intervention set off a series of consequences no one could have predicted. Sometimes, he reflected wryly, the smallest action can echo far beyond its moment, the true essence of the butterfly effect.